at the end of time.
O'clock.
Well, hey, everybody. Tom's burping as I'm turning the shit
Pre-gaming.
As I'm turning the shit on. Well, no, I don't. I only start drinking probably about 15 minutes before the show.
That's not what I was doing.
That's
About 15 minutes forward, yeah.
yeah. So where it's well, I guess technically that's pre-gaming, but yeah, not really. So
right.
hey, everybody, what's going on? It's Wednesday night.
It's going to be another crime show today.
Doing
We're talking
another-
about damn serial killer killing people in a hotel.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never heard of this guy. Jenny says nobody's ever heard of
I
this
feel
guy.
like, well, no, obviously people have heard
Yeah.
of this guy, but there are other videos about him. But I feel like he's kind of one of those forgotten serial killers. There seems to be a lot of those. And even somebody that's kind of like a true crime aficionado like myself. I had actually never heard of this guy. Somebody suggested this dude a while back. I don't even remember how long it was. It might have been a year or two ago. And so I had it in my list like all this time, and it periodically I would put it in the polls, but it never won. But this week it actually won. And I kind of did a deep dive on this, and this is just one of those motherfuckers that, and I suspect that there were a lot of these that they probably will never identify. Just guys that drive around on the highways, just killing people at random. This dude, they actually, well, spoiler alert, they didn't catch him. Well, they never caught him. By the time they figured out who he was, he had been dead for many years.
Okay.
So, and he was not in prison when he died. I mean, he went to prison for other things, like over the course of his life, but never for any of this stuff. And like I said, they didn't identify him until many years after he was already dead, which is kind of shitty. So the, poor families of these victims...
He got away with it.
He did get away with it. And he died living a normal, happy life in fucking Iowa.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So, and at the end, I'll read you bits from his obituary, because that was really something. Like, I read it, and I was just like, it was kind of infuriating. Because they didn't know at the time that he died that he was a fucking serial killer.
Yeah.
Huh?
He hinted at it?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, it was obituary.
Oh, his obituary. They wrote it about him, about what a great guy.
Yeah, about what a great dude he was.
Yeah.
And
well, they didn't know any different.
No, they didn't know. Well, I can't say that. It's like, well, maybe he did do some bad shit, like, and was arrested for it. But I don't know. Maybe the people where he lived didn't know that, because maybe they didn't check like other states. This happened in the Midwest, and all of his crimes happened in the late 80s to early 90s. And I suspect, I can't prove this, obviously, but I think he killed a lot more people than they think.
Okay.
But you never know.
I'm looking forward to hearing it.
Yeah, it's
forward to the
interesting.
show.
It's interesting. Everything about serial killers is kind of interesting, sadly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's that. So do we have anything that we need to... Oh, we need to shout out... We did this the other day, but we do want to shout out Xandida for sending us Natural Born Killers. This is a great fucking movie. I love
Yeah,
this
that was
movie.
on the list. So that was
And this is... I thought we had reviewed it already, but we haven't. So I'm obviously living in a parallel dimension or something.
We just talked about it.
I guess. Yeah. So I was like, I still can't believe that we didn't do it, because I could have sworn that we did, but whatever. So yeah, we'll definitely be doing that one. Although I will say that yesterday we went to the Dolby Theater. We drove all the way to Altamont Springs to the Dolby Theater, because our nearer theater doesn't have the Dolby thing, to see Dune Part 2.
Hell yeah. Badass.
Man, that shit was epic.
Yes. And there's going to be a third one. They're going to start getting into
Yeah, it's a trilogy.
Yeah, they're going to start getting into damn Dune Messiah next.
God, it's so good. It was so good.
Yeah. Yeah, the second one was fucking even better than the first one.
It was so good.
Yeah, it was good. I want to see that one again. I want to own them all.
And we went on, it was a Tuesday afternoon, for Christ's sake.
Fucking packed. First show.
And it was, it was the first Dolby show of the day. And it was, the theater was like 75% full. And and it's a long movie. It's like 2 hours and 45 minutes or something like that. Yeah. Nobody made a fucking peep the whole time. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. That never happens. Yeah. Nobody even rustled a bag of Funyuns or nothing. Everybody was
the whole time.
Dead quiet.
It was just,
They just like watched it the whole time.
Yeah. A lot of people stayed for the music and the band, but no, it's a fucking excellent show. If you haven't seen the first one, see the first one on Amazon or something.
Otherwise, the second one probably will make no sense to you whatsoever.
Second one will make no sense to you. The second one is fucking epic, badass. You want to see it in Dolby too. It's fucking the whole fucking place rattling and shaking because shit blowing
Yeah,
up.
the whole
monstrous looking fucking machines and stuff. They showed Fade Routha, and he's different than, it's not played by Sting, he's played by another guy. And then they show Giddy Prime, what's happening on Giddy Prime. Everything's in black and white when you're outside.
It's awesome looking.
Yeah, and I remember that scene was actually more accurate to the book. I hadn't read the book in a long time, but Fade did kill some gladiators, did some gladiator fighting on his birthday, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, they did show that in the movie. That wasn't the movie.
And killing his servant girls and shit. Fucking. Although in the book, as punishment, Baron Vladimir told him that he had to go down and kill his own sex slaves in the stable. He had about 200 of them in there. That was his punishment. Go down and kill all those girls that he was cracking. I didn't put that in the movie, but they had similar kind of shit.
Yeah, they kind of referred to that.
Yeah, the Harkonnens were bad. At least their leadership was. I don't know how they were corrupt. It was weird because the Fremen were stealing their body water after they were killing them and fucking stealing their body water, and they couldn't.
Well, you can't waste that shit.
They couldn't use their body water to drink because it was filled with chemicals. They could only use it for to run the cooling systems.
Right.
And I was looking at those dudes because there should be all kinds of chemicals in there. Those dudes are fucking jacked on all kinds of tests and shit.
That's probably what it was like.
Yeah,
we can't drink this.
every one of those dudes was fucking. Every one of those fucking Harkonnens was fucking ripped. Or natural.
I just loved how practical they were about it. They're like, what? It's a human, and it's
Yeah,
like your whatever
save that
percentage water. It's like it's the desert.
Yeah.
You need all the water you can get.
They showed more weaponry that they had. They had some
Suck it
different
all out of
weaponry. Cool ornithopters. Some of them look like dragonflies. Other ones look like beetles.
I will say I'm really glad that we rewatched the first movie only a day or two before we saw the second one, because I remembered a lot of stuff from the first movie, but the movie is like so complicated that you really kind of have to.
Yeah.
So I was glad it was like fresh in my mind, so I could remember like who everybody was and what was going on.
Yeah, and they kind of changed things back from the way I kind of remembered in the book. In the first movie, Aaliyah kills Vladimir Harkonnen. All right, and that's not how it went in the book. In fact, in this movie, Aaliyah's not born yet. She's born later. I don't remember if she was born in the book. Maybe she wasn't.
Yeah, she's gonna be in the third movie because they foreshadowed.
Yeah.
Her.
She was born under the influence of the water of life. So she's like born a psychic.
But Paul Atreides, his mom was still pregnant.
Yeah, I thought she was born in the first movie, in the book though. Maybe not.
I can't remember. I was a kid when I read that. But I was like fucking 16 or something.
Yeah, same thing. I was maybe 16, 17.
Tammy said, thank you so much, because that was bugging me. Austin Butler plays Fade Hark, the what do they call him? The Na Baron. He was the same guy that played Elvis in the Elvis movie.
Oh, okay.
I was like, where the whole time I'm looking at him going,
Yeah.
I know that motherfucker.
Yeah.
Where it's like, that's who he was.
He's
he was
fucking
Elvis.
ripped in it. I don't know if it was CG or whatever, but his physique was fucking
He plays
fantastic.
a total psychopath.
Yeah, dude's a fucking
Yeah,
psycho.
same. The David Lynch version, that was the character that Sting played.
Yeah.
In his little pants. His little...
Yeah.
Sting in his little
I like
pants.
Sting's version though.
I did too.
Yeah.
Sting's actually a good actor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He was a little too old for the role though.
Yeah, but what are you gonna do? Sting and his lingam.
Yeah.
As we've
climb up on that shit.
as we
Reach Eastern enlightenment through his dick.
Woo, you're just gonna be hovering over his
Man,
lap.
he was full of shit. He knew it.
Well, like I said, at least he knew that he was
Yeah,
full
he
of
was- I
shit.
could
So
tell he knew.
I'll allow it.
Yeah, he was trying to bamboozle his way.
And the
into
police were such a good fucking band, man.
trying to bamboozle his way. Into
Even a lot of
into the
Sting solo
Yanni.
shit was good. I
Was it?
liked a lot of Sting solo. I had a bunch of
Yeah.
his albums.
He's
I don't
good.
know what happened to him, but
He was good.
I used to have him.
Haven't seen that dude in forever. He's probably fucking unrecognizable now.
Yeah, he's got to be like fucking 100 years old. No,
Yeah.
he's not 100 years old. He's probably like only probably 10 years older than we are.
No, he's got to be in his 70s. He's my parents' age.
You think?
I think he was.
Oh yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Murder Hornet said, "Have y'all done a review on Chopping Mall?" I don't think we ever did. Like, we watched it probably like a year ago. I've seen it multiple times.
Yeah.
But I think we watched it and we were going to review it and then we didn't for whatever reason. We probably should one of these days because I actually do really like that movie. Damn, haven't had Funyuns in a long time. Yeah, I don't really like Funyuns, to be honest with you. Zach says, I can't believe how fast Denis Villeneuve's career has progressed. Nobody knew who he was a decade ago. Yeah, well, I mean, he fucking earned it, man, because he makes awesome fucking movies.
Kicking the shit out of Hollywood movies.
Well, I mean, this is a Hollywood movie too. It's Warner Brothers, I think.
Yeah, it's Warner Brothers, but it's, you know, Disney and the other studios just kicking the shit out of him right now.
Tammy said an interviewer asked Butler if he thought his character was sexy. I would not say so.
Fade?
Yeah, I guess I could see if you thought that he was. Like, I wouldn't judge you for it.
He's kind of gothed out. Looks like a fucking industrial guy's all bald.
And he's got like a bald, like, and he's kind of got like a Neanderthal kind of brow thing going on.
He's got his eyebrows shaved.
He looks a little bit like the dudes from like Prometheus.
Yeah.
The engineers.
Yeah, looks a bit like that.
A little bit like with the big head type situation going on.
Yeah.
But he's a total psychopath. Which he was in the book too, if I remember correctly. Yeah, that was kind of the whole point of his character. But yeah, if you haven't seen it yet, like I said, watch the first one like right before you see the second one, because otherwise I would have forgotten. I'm just, like I said, I remembered a lot of stuff from the first movie, but I'm glad I watched it again because it's so complicated. So when I saw the second one, I was just kind of like, oh, it's this guy, and it's, I knew. I knew.
They were royal people, man. Of course, they were psychos. Most royal people are. They're basically the cartel leaders.
Well,
and they just didn't. You know, the Harkonnens didn't have human rights or anything. They just did whatever they wanted to their subjects. You know, so
that guy that plays
the monarchy. Yeah.
The guy that plays the Baron in this is really cool too. With his fat ass like floating around and stuff.
The Baron's getting fucking killed and shit, and fucking Fade's laughing. He's just going, yeah, fuck that dude. Yeah, he was about himself.
Whatever, they don't care.
Fade was about himself. He's just, fuck that dude.
Like, not the first time I've killed a relative.
He was seeing the Baron grovel, and he's just going,
yeah, nice.
Yeah, fuck
you grovel, fat man, pretty much.
Grovel, fat man. Because he was put himself number one. You know, he was probably thinking, well, shit, I might be next on the throne.
Well, yeah, of
Kill
course.
him and I'm next on the throne.
That's what they were always thinking. Yeah. Oh, Iris is asking Murder Hornet about, because you were asking who run Bartertown.
Yeah.
And then Iris said, was your first comment a riddle? Because it sounds like one. No, it's from
Master Blaster run Bartertown.
Master Blaster runs.
Yeah, you got to know Mad Max lore.
It's Mad Max.
Master Blaster was a unit. It was two dudes. There was a big old fucking mentally retarded guy with a little brainy midget riding on his back. That was Master Blaster, and I'm that. I'm the smart guy, and I'm the fucking I'm the smart midget and the giant combined. I'm the Master Blaster.
The smart midget and the dumb giant combined into one person.
Yeah.
That about sums you up, I think.
Yeah.
That's why I think that was a good name.
Master Blaster.
I think that was why that was a good name for you to pick.
I'm a jacked midget.
Murder Hornet said, I did 21andMe, and 68% Irish, and Cena had 2% Neanderthal DNA. I think everybody does, don't they?
If you're white.
If you're white, you have 2% Neanderthal DNA. Because we only bred with Neanderthals after, we left Africa, you know what I mean? So I think all white people on Earth have a small percentage of Neanderthal DNA. Because for a long time, they thought that they didn't interbreed, but then when they started doing genetic, they're like, oh, well, I guess they did.
They could crossbreed, yeah.
Yeah, that's how similar they were.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think everybody. I'd be curious.
It was like horses and donkeys.
Yeah.
You could have a mule. Now the mules, they say mules are sterile. It's not true. Every now and then a mule can breed back in, but they usually breed back in with horses.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. It was like a weird dead time there. Okay. All right. So are we ready to get? Do we have anything else we need to cover? We talked about Dean 2. We talked about All right, so let's get into this case, because like I said, I had never heard of this guy either until somebody, and I can't remember who it was because it was a long time ago, but somebody recommended this killer to me, and I had never heard of him. And this is another motherfucker that was identified for years and years and years, and like I said, and they didn't figure out who he was until 2022, long after he was already dead. So he never got punished for any of his crimes, and like I said, I'm pretty sure he committed a lot more than...
So they must have got his ass through DNA.
They did, yeah. That genealogical...
He found him by his family.
Through a family member. Yeah. That's exactly what happened. So before we start talking about this jackhole, let's kind of go back in the timeline, and we'll talk about the victims first, because like I said, they didn't identify who he was until way later. So for a long time, he was unidentified, until only a couple of years ago, he was unidentified. And he was just known as the I-65 killer is what they usually called him, or the Days Inn killer. They call him both of those things. So let's talk about the first known crime in the series. Whether this is actually the first one, nobody knows, but this is the first one that's like attributed to him. So the first victim was a 41-year-old woman named Vicky Heath. Now, she was just kind of starting out like anew in life, I guess. She had just moved she grew up in Hardinsburg, Kentucky. She had just moved to a town called Radcliffe, which was about 35 miles away. She had 2 kids, a son and a daughter. They were grown, but she had just gotten engaged to her boyfriend, and they were either buying a house together or had, just bought a house together. So it was that kind of thing. So because her and her fiance, they're buying a house, so obviously they need all the money they can get, right? So she decides her fiance has a job, but she's like, well, I'll get a job too to like supplement the income. So she gets a job at a Super 8 motel, near Elizabethtown, Kentucky. Kentucky, right? That's what I said. Yeah. Now, she worked as a night auditor, which is basically you just stay there all night and look after the motel. You check people in and out, you make sure like if anybody needs anything in the middle of the night, or if anything goes banana pants or something like that and you need to like do something, then you're just there to like run the shit, basically like a manager. So that's what her job was. So February 20th, 1987, seemed like kind of a regular day. It was a Friday. So she shows up for her shift. I think her shift started at like 11 p.m. or right around there. Now, this seemed like kind of an uneventful night at first. The hotel was only about half full. It was a Friday night, like I said, but it was off season. It was February, you know what I mean? It was like real cold out. Now, the motel manager was there until 11 o'clock at night. And then, as usual, he left, and Vicky was the only staff member left at the motel. Now, apparently this was not unusual for motels at this time. Even if it was a woman, depending on where the motel was, they would usually just have one person.
She was on her own.
Like working there at night, which I don't think they allow that anymore, but they did back in the 80s.
It was a higher trust society back then for some reason. Internet wasn't around. People weren't aware of what was going on.
This kind of shit absolutely did happen back then.
Yeah.
I guess people just didn't know about it as
people
much.
were like, I'd be all right.
Yeah, no.
But no, there was fucking serial killers were raging in the 70s and the 80s. There was lots of them.
Big time. Well, like I said, the peak of it was like late 80s, early 90s. It started like precipitously declining after that.
Prevention wasn't a thing. I remember the mentality. It was like, oh, it never happened to me.
Yeah, which is dumb. I mean, I'm not saying live your whole life. We've talked about this before. Like, don't live your whole life being like, oh my God, I'm gonna get killed by a serial killer. Probably you won't. But the possibility of that is not zero.
Part of it was that society was less litigious back then. So if you got killed working for a company, you're some woman, you got abducted, you know what I mean, from the premises, and were killed. Their families were not real apt to sue the company where she worked at. You know what I mean, for not providing some kind of security. It didn't happen back then. It didn't dawn on them that you could do that.
Oh, now that would absolutely.
Now that would absolutely happen.
I'm like, I'm gonna make you bitches pay.
Yeah, they don't have women working on their own inside of convenience stores or anything at night anymore like they used to. But they used to.
Although I tell you, the Circle K near our house.
Yeah.
We stopped there after the club sometimes, like to get sandwiches and chips and stuff, like to get snacks on the way home. And there was a girl, her name's Hope, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. She works at a liquor store now.
Yeah.
But sometimes
I saw her at the dollar store a couple days ago.
Oh yeah, she lives around here.
Yeah.
She's really nice. She's on my Facebook.
Yeah.
She's really cool. But she would be working in there. A lot of times she was by herself.
I don't think she was by herself, was she?
I don't know. Was there somebody else in the back?
I always saw other people in there.
Because I was always kind of like freaked out about that. I'm just
I don't think she was in there by herself.
I would not fucking work it. Holy shit, man. My dad used to work at convenience stores when I was growing up, and he's a dude, and he got held up all the time. Yeah. He got held up like 5-6 times.
Yeah,
he worked at like a Magic Market or something.
My first mother-in-law, she got abducted from a 7-Eleven and raped.
That's what I mean. It happened.
They nearly killed her. The dudes that did it were serial killers. Well, they were ex-convicts, but some of the girls they did kill.
I would never.
And that was in Mississippi.
I mean, I know you you got to do what you got to do for money, but it's just like I would not work at a convenience store. I would not work at a motel. I would not work at a liquor store. Anything that was at night, I would never.
That one event fucked that family up. It changed the whole course of that family.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me one bit.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we're talking about here. It's this kind of shit. So Vicky's there. The manager was there until 11, and then he left like he usually did. So we don't know what happened in the ensuing next 6 hours or so. However, at about 6:38 a.m., the police department in Elizabethtown, Kentucky, got a call from one of the guests at the Super 8. And the guest that called said, we walked into the lobby, we're going to check out because we're going to leave. And the lobby was a complete fucking disaster. They said it just looked like a tornado hit it. And they couldn't find any employees there. They couldn't find any staff members. So they were worried, understandably. So the cops show up. Oh, one cop shows up at first. And he walks into the lobby. And he said that it looked like... He said it looked like a bunch of dudes had a fight in there. Like a brawl. He said there was like all the shit from the desk was just thrown all over the floor. Furniture was overturned. The payphone had been ripped off the wall. Like it was a total fucking mess, right?
Put up a fight.
I guess.
Yeah.
And obviously, Vicky was not there. Now, at first, what they thought at first, because it was such a huge mess, they were just like, man, a bunch of dudes must have come in fighting, and whoever the clerk was got hurt, and so we need to find out where they went. So the officer kind of looks around the place and doesn't really see anything amiss anywhere else in the hotel. And then he decides, well, I'm going to go out back, like, behind the property, see if I can find anybody. So he goes out the back of the motel in the back parking lot. And sadly, out by the dumpsters behind the motel, they found Vicky Heath. She was laying on her back. It had been snowing kind of lightly and it was kind of melted, so it was like all muddy, like underneath her. She still had her clothes on. She had like a sweater and like a plaid skirt, but they were all like torn up and bloody. And it looked as though she had been shot in the head. They also found there was like a set of footprints in the mud that was going like away from where her body was and kind of partway into the parking lot. Obviously somebody had walked to the parking lot and got in a car. They got like some tire tracks too, but they couldn't get an impression of them because by the time the snow melted, it kind of messed them up. You know what I mean? So they did an autopsy on her later. She had obviously been beaten. She had also been sodomized, and she had been shot twice in the head with a .38 caliber handgun. One of the bullets had actually gone into the ground, so they were actually able to recover that. They also got a bunch of pictures of the footprints that were left at the scene, but like I said, they couldn't get any impressions of the tire tracks because of the snow melt and everything like that.
So he assaulted her outside in the snow?
They think probably, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It seemed that was the case, yeah. Now they did, obviously this is 1987, so DNA wasn't really a thing yet, but they did keep her clothing in storage, and later, spoiler alert, they would be able to get usable DNA off that. So they got that. Now, a few days later, the media is asked, because this was kind of a big deal, obviously, this is kind of a low crime area, and the cops basically were like, we don't know. They don't have any suspects. They didn't even really know exactly what the motive was. They initially thought, oh, well, somebody came in to rob the place and she fought them and, then whatever happened. But then some investigators were like, no, they thought this was maybe, somebody that came in was like a rapist that came in with that motive.
Yeah.
Or they're like, well, it was so vicious that maybe it was a crime of passion. Maybe it was somebody that knew her. They didn't really have a lot of shit to go on. One thing they did think that they knew, though, was that, well, this was probably just an isolated incident. You know what I mean? That, like I said, they thought it was probably a robbery, an opportunistic robbery that, went horribly wrong. And it's like, oh, it's isolated. Nobody worry about it. Well, they were pretty wrong about that. Although, I will say that the same attacker that they know of didn't do anything for a while. It was like a little bit more than a year later. But what happened on March 3rd, 1989? The same guy struck again, and this time he killed 2 separate victims in the same night.
So he waited 2 years?
No, 1 year.
1 year to kill 2 more in the same time?
At the same time. Like I said, there might be some more victims in the middle of there that we don't know about. And like I said, I want to get into that because
I ain't buying that.
We'll get into like these big gaps and stuff like that. And I kind of feel like,
that one crime you just talked about, that's not his first one.
I don't think so either. I don't think so either.
And then there was the other ones before he fucking did those 2 a year later. No, he didn't cool off and then for a year. No, he was doing it steady.
And the fact
maybe
that
once every couple months
that these 2 crimes happened in the same night made me think that this is a very impulsive, like he just wants to do it all the time type of thing. So I guarantee that there are more fucking victims out there. I bet a lot of those unsolved, highway type murders and stuff like that were probably this guy.
And then a lot of them maybe not found.
That too.
Yeah, and the body's never found. People forget that, a lot of people just turn up missing. The bodies are never found.
Yeah.
They're never discovered.
Although the thing about this dude, at least the ones that they know about, is that he didn't really make much effort to hide the bodies. Yeah. Like this woman, he just left her in the dumpsters, by the dumpsters, like behind the motel.
So he was kind of disorganized most of the time.
Yeah, he didn't really seem like he was trying to
plan or anything.
Right. And I mean, it didn't really seem to hurt him any. Like they didn't catch him. They never caught him for this stuff.
It was just things of opportunity.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. So March 3rd, 1989. So the first victim was named Margaret Gill, although she was usually known as Peggy. She was 24, and she was actually a student at Sawyer Business College in Merrillville, Indiana. Now, to kind of help out, and pay her tuition and stuff like that, she was working, just like Vicky Heath had been, as a night auditor at a Days Inn. She'd been working there for about a year and a half. Now, she was single, and she was still living at home with her parents, until she finished school. And she was described by pretty much everybody. They said she was real kind of reserved, real quiet and shy. She liked the night shift because it wasn't so busy and she didn't have to deal with customers and stuff all the time, which, I understand that. I get it. Now, on the day that she got killed, sadly, the night before, the day before, was Thursday, March 2nd. Now, she was actually at home with her parents, and her dad's birthday was the next day. So they were going to have a big party. And so she was talking to him about, I made you this cake and, I'm going to get you and all this other kind of stuff. Her dad was actually turning 51 on the next following day. And so they were talking, and then it's getting to be closer to 11 p.m., which is when she had to be at work. And she's like, I've got to go. I got to go to work or whatever. So she told him early happy birthday and went to work. And sadly, that was the last time that her dad would ever see her. So this particular motel, which was the Merrillville Days Inn, this was on Louisiana Street. And at the time in 1989, I don't know if it's still like this now, but it was just off I-65, and there was 6 kind of these cheap roadside motels, kind of clustered all together, as you see, a lot in American highway type things. You get kind of these budget hotels and fast food places and gas stations and shit like that. So this particular hotel was 2 stories. It had 130 rooms, and it was U-shaped. Now, the front office and the lobby was right in the middle of the U. And this is something that, because we were talking about before about women working overnight at these places. Well, I guess in hotel parlance, at least in the late 80s, probably still nowadays, where this motel was and how it was constructed, it was determined to be low risk security because it was in a fairly low crime area. The way that it was situated, you could see the lobby was real lit up, and you could see it from all the other rooms, you know what I mean? So it was real visible. So because it was considered low security risk, between like in the overnight hours between 11 a.m. and 11 p.m. and 6 a.m., they would only have the night auditor working, which in this case was a woman. So they didn't have a security guard or anyone else there. They left the lobby unlocked all night so that guests could come in and out if they needed to check in or check out or whatever. And that's pretty much it. Like, if even in the 80s, if at least Days Inn, and I'm assuming other motel chains were the same, if they were in a higher risk area, obviously they would have security guards, or they would lock the lobby, you know, during overnight hours, have bulletproof glass, you know, when at check-in and stuff like that. But this didn't have anything like that. You know what I mean? Also, significantly, this particular motel had a wing on the second floor that was vacant. I believe it was because it was being renovated, although I'm not entirely sure about that. But it was empty and like nobody was in there is what I'm saying. Now, as I said, this was a very low crime. This was Merrillville, Indiana at the time, a very low crime area, which I imagine it still is. However, this exact motel had been robbed 3 times prior to this incident. And actually, all of these 6 motels that were in the same area had been robbed numerous times, like in the previous few years, just because anything that's like on a highway like that, where there's a lot of transient traffic and it's like you can get right back on the highway and like go and stuff like that, that's obviously going to attract a lot more crime than a more established kind of area.
It's got easy ingress and egress.
Exactly.
You can get in and out of there.
Exactly. So, yeah. And the thing about it, too, was that they had some video surveillance, but not a lot. Like I said, this was late 80s. Some places did have video, but a lot of places didn't bother with it because at the time it was kind of expensive, and, you know, a lot of people didn't really like it because they thought, well, we don't want to be videotaped all the time or shit. Like, little did they know. But yeah, so it's like back then people were still kind of like bothered about being videotaped at all times. But yeah, so they didn't have any
people were camera shy.
Yeah,
I remember we used to be able to put a camera on me long time ago. I'd be feeling comfortable.
Everybody would be like that because
like normal.
now it's just like normal because, you know, you're like being watched at all times, which is crazy. But like, yeah, back then people were still bothered by it. I remember people feeling like that. So a lot of people didn't really like being surveilled. So there was kind of like a big thing about video cameras in places like, we don't want everybody watching us like while we're doing stuff. But you know what I mean? So they didn't have the cameras back then. So Peggy Gill shows up at the Days Inn in Merrillville. She worked from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Now, she got there, and the second shift clerk was still there, and I think stayed for like another hour. I think the second shift clerk like left at midnight, so there was like an overlap. Now, this was a Thursday, and, you know, the second shift clerk said, ooh, it was like a really busy afternoon. They had like 70 rooms booked. I don't know if that's out of the whole 130 or if there were some that were in the wing. You know, I don't know if that room total like counted ones that were in the wing that wasn't being used, but there was a lot of people staying at the hotel. So basically like the second shift clerk left. Now at about 12:30 in the morning, Peggy called the general manager, whose name is Betty Pierce. And she would periodically, that was part of her job, that she would periodically check in with the general manager and tell her if anything was going on. So she called her at 12:30 and said, you know, everything's copacetic, like nothing weird is going on or anything like that. And then records show right about an hour later, about 1:30, Peggy checked in her last guest of the evening, and he evidently went to his room. Now, this guy was actually considered a suspect for a little while because he was, you know, the last person other than the killer, like, to see her alive. He was the last person that she had checked in before she disappeared. But he was actually, you know, exonerated, like, pretty quickly. Now, sometime between 1:30, 1:40, and 2 in the morning, something happened to her. Because at around 2 in the morning, this college student comes into the motel and wanted to get a room, you know. And he waits around in the lobby for a little while, but nobody's there, and like nobody comes, and he's like calling and nobody shows up. So he waited for a few minutes, and he was kind of like, well, fuck this. And then he just went to, there was other motels in the area. So he's just like, well, fuck it. I'll just go to another one. So he just left, you know what I mean? Because nobody showed up. So then about 3 hours later, about 5 a.m, Peggy, again, was supposed to call the general manager at 5 a.m, which she did every time she worked. You were supposed to call at 5 a.m. and say, did anybody call in sick? Did anything weird happen all night or anything? Like, you're just supposed to give the general manager an update of like shit that had happened overnight, right? And she's supposed to call like at 5 a.m, and she didn't call. So Betty Pierce is a little bit worried. Now, she actually told the Indianapolis Star, she's like, if it had been anybody else like working other than Peggy, I probably wouldn't have been as upset, but Peggy was very conscientious, and the fact that she didn't call at 5 a.m. like she usually did worried me a lot, and then she tried calling back, and she couldn't get hold of anybody. So about 50 minutes later, Betty Pierce called the cops and reported Betty Gill missing. So the cops sent some officers out to the Days Inn. And right about 6 a.m, the first cop shows up in the parking lot. And he notices that there's already like a couple of people that have been staying at the motel. And they were kind of locked out of the lobby. Like, they wanted to check out. But there was nobody in there. And nobody would let them in. And they didn't know what was going on. So the officer like goes into the place and sees, or like looks in the place and sees that there's nobody in there. So at this point, the cop calls Peggy's parents at their house, and they were kind of, I don't know how worried they were at this point, because Peggy's car was still in the parking lot. And so they're kind of thinking, okay, well, maybe she was abducted, but maybe, maybe something happened in one of the rooms and she had to go take care of it, and she had to be away from the lobby for some time. Maybe she went to another room and fell asleep. Who knows? You know what I mean? So they didn't really know how worried to be. You know what I mean? Because they go in the lobby and they didn't see, it wasn't like, the Vicky Heath one where the place looked like a fucking tornado hit it. Like, there was nothing that looked like a struggle. You know what I mean? And they're like, well, it looks okay. Like, nothing looks bad. But they did notice that all of Peggy's stuff was still there. Like, her purse and her keys and everything like that were still, like, behind the desk where they would normally have been. So the cop was like, okay, well, we'll wait until the manager shows up and she can unlock the rest of the place. And we'll see what's what. Maybe nothing's wrong. Like, maybe she had to go take care of something somewhere, and it's fine. So Betty Pierce, the manager, she shows up at 6:30, and the cops start searching the hotel. At this stage, they discover that the cash drawer that was in the office had been pried open, and the money was gone out of it. And they noted that the way the cash drawer was, it was like a steel drawer, like an industrial grade steel drawer, and it was like secured to the desk, and it had been fucking wrenched out with what they called, quote unquote, significant force. So somebody really pulled this motherfucker out of here.
You had a tool.
Probably.
Crowbar. Something like that.
Yeah.
Crowbar.
So they were able to determine that $179 in 1989 money, I'm not sure what that is nowadays,
probably about $300, $400
had been taken.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
probably about $400.
Right. So after that, they got a little bit more alarmed, as you would. So they go up to the second floor, where, like I said, there was a wing of the hotel which was not being used. It was vacant. So they go in there, and at the end of one of the halls, like right by, there was a fire exit, which was what they termed like the farthest point from the front desk, from the lobby. They found Peggy Gill's body. She had been raped and was shot twice behind her left ear with a .22. She also had like a big cut on her left shoulder.
How old was this chick again?
24.
Yeah, she's a young girl.
24, yeah. She was a student. Like, she was going to school. She was just doing this to...
Where was her body found again?
It was in the vacant wing of the hotel, at the end of a hall.
He took her up there.
Yeah. He forced her up there, I'm assuming, at gunpoint.
He wanted privacy so he had more time.
Yeah.
And he killed her when he was done with her.
And
nasty fucker.
Yeah, what they found was that her uniform, because she was wearing, the Days Inn uniform, whatever, was very neatly folded and stacked next to the body. So they don't know if he did that or if he forced her to do that.
She probably did.
At gunpoint.
Yeah, probably took her clothes off and she stacked it. She was just probably buying time.
Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah. Stalling and buying time. She folds it all up. It's sick to think of it.
I know. I can't imagine. Because this could happen to anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, this poor girl. I mean, these poor women are just at their fucking jobs, man.
Yeah. He had a gun on her, take her clothes off, strip. So she.
Yeah.
And then folding it takes more time. She might have been talking to him during that time.
Right.
Or just something to make her feel better. She's doing it to make herself feel better about it. Fucking. I've seen a lot of videos of fucking people dying, getting killed. Most of it's gunfights.
Makes me so sad.
But people do weird shit when they're getting ready to die.
Well, yeah, it's they're
in denial too.
Yeah, as you would be.
Yeah.
I can't imagine, and I fucking hope that I am never in this fucking situation. I just can't imagine what it would be like to be in this situation. I think one of the reasons that true crime fascinates me so much is because I can empathize, because I can imagine. I'm a horror writer. I can imagine what it would be like to be in that situation, and it's just kind of I mean, obviously I've never been in that situation, so I don't, but I can think of what that must be like, and I'm like, that must be the fucking worst thing in the world. Oh my god. As
long as you're with me, they're gonna have to fucking go through me to get to you. They gotta
Well, I know that, but it's what if I'm by myself at some point? You know what I mean?
Well, you're rarely by yourself. Past fucking 10 years, you're very rarely by yourself. 50,
and reading shit like this makes me very glad of that. Like I said, these they were just at work.
Yeah.
They weren't doing it. And I'm not saying that it's some people deserve it more than others, because some people people are sex workers or drug addicts or whatever. But it's just kind of they don't deserve to be murdered either. Obviously, nobody does. But it's just kind of you just go to work. You're just doing your regular shit.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden this fucking motherfucker comes in. And there's nothing you can do, really. It's just I don't know. That's fucking horrifying to me. So they did find fingerprints.
There was shit they could have done.
Well, probably, but
should have had somebody else there working with her.
Well, yeah, that's one thing.
Yeah, and then there should have been fucking armed security guard.
I mean, overnight,
that's very common here in the U.S.
On the side of a highway, of a major highway. I would never in a million years, even if it was a man, it's I just always feel you should at least have two fucking people working. Yeah. Don't leave one person there.
And I've had a lot of friends over the years that worked jobs kind of like this, working in service stations at night or working in fucking 7-Elevens at night. They didn't give a... This is here in the U.S. They didn't give a fuck what fucking company policy said. They were packing. They had guns on them.
I mean, you can't blame people.
Because they're like, what are you going to do, fire me? This motherfucker tried to kill me.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm alive.
No, man. If I had to work overnight, at a motel or a liquor store or something like that, I would absolutely
fucking right.
I would absolutely be armed. Yeah. Even if they told me not to. Because I'm I don't want my ass raped and killed. No,
it's better
thank
to be
you.
fired than to be dead.
Exactly. No, thank you. So... And like I said, I mean, I just kind of... obviously now, working overnight, I think they have policies in place now where it's you're not allowed to have one person. It's it always has to be at least two people. But
and fucking people, man, believe me, I'm an expert in fucking security and how to break security and how to kill armed men. Even most of the time I see the videos of these fucking jokers doing this shit, just a modicum of fucking resistance and the dude would have backed down. If the girl just had a gun, even if she shot once or twice and missed the dude would have ran. You know what I mean? Because they're looking for easy targets. They're not willing to die for it.
Yeah, I mean, and they do tell, like I said, and I'm not victim blaming or anything like that, but one of the things they do tell you if you take classes like that,
become uncontrollable.
Yeah, it's just do crazy shit, and we said this before. It's make yourself difficult.
Yeah, just shit on yourself, vomit, fucking be totally
anything,
act like you're crazy. It works in nature too.
Anything.
Animals jumping on their backs and spitting up fucking foam and shitting and shit, and they go, "Oh fuck, I don't want to eat that."
Yeah, anything.
Yeah, it works.
Like I said, it's better than getting killed.
Right. Yeah. To be totally uncontrollable, make that person kill you right there on the spot. Because they're going to kill you after
That's
anyway.
another thing, too, that I'm always just kind of like, if somebody says, points a gun at you and says, hey, get in the car, we're going, I'd be like, we're not going anywhere.
You're going to kill me right here. Yeah.
You either shoot me right here or we're not going anyplace,
Now,
buddy.
some offenders know about that. So what they do is that there's more than one of them. They just grab the girl and throw her.
There's
no resistance.
My great aunt had that happen to her. She just got pulled into a van. She was just riding her bike. It was the middle of the day, too. She was riding her bike down the road. They pulled her into a van.
If you got a couple guys, they can just grab her. Mm-hmm. Or if you're real small and this is a big dude, he can just grab you and throw you in.
That was in Daytona.
No way to resist. What happened to her? She was released?
She got raped.
Okay.
And then they threw her out of the van.
They threw her back out?
Yeah. But
did they ever catch him?
I don't know. I don't think they did, to be honest with you.
How many was it?
I think it was 2 or 3 guys. Yeah. But yeah, that happened 70s? I think it was the 70s.
It was easier to get away with it back then.
Yeah. And like I said, it was the middle of the day. It wasn't nighttime rush. She was just riding her bicycle down the fucking road. There was other people around.
There was a serial killer named Macduff, and that's how he and his partner would do it. They would just cruise around, and if they saw a woman washing her car at a fucking spray washing place, they'd fucking park next to her and come around to either side and grab her and fucking throw her in the car. Yeah. They picked girls that were like under 5 feet tall. That's what they were looking for. Somebody who couldn't really fight back.
Wear something heavy, like wear a bunch of fucking chains and shit like that so you can't get picked up. Tammy said, a lot of small motels stay open overnight and they don't care for their employees. I've worked day shift in them and knew the overnight shift workers, always only one person on duty. See, that's just fucking asking for trouble. I would never. Yeah. If I owned a place like that, it's like I would never in a million years.
Especially if it's a low-end motel, man, with all the fucking
like I said,
hookers and shit.
Right on the highway. That's just like transient people, like just people that are traveling and stuff like that, and they're never going to come through there again.
Random evil motherfucker blows into town.
Yeah. Jesus.
Does his shit and then moves on.
I would never. Well, like I said, because of this kind of crap.
Well, nowadays cameras are can be
they didn't have that too. As much in the
that solves a lot of it because they don't want to be identified. So if you have cameras everywhere, that can help.
Yeah.
A lot of those guys aren't smart enough to try to figure out where the fucking computer is that's fucking getting.
Check this out. I was watching some shit today on, I think it was Lazy Masquerade, and he was talking about fucked up cases with CCTV footage. Yeah. And this happened. I think this happened in New Zealand actually, and it was a girl. I can't remember where I think maybe she was English, but she was on vacation, so she was like backpacking and staying at hostels and stuff and she's in New Zealand. And she goes on a date with a dude who I think was from there. I think he was from New Zealand. She met him on Tinder or something. And they went out, just regular date. They went to get cocktails and they went to dinner and then they went out to a bar and went dancing and stuff like that. And then they go back to his hotel room and he murdered her. And he was like... I think they thought, and when they caught him, he was, super arrogant. I think he thought they would never catch him. They had him on, because there's CCTV cameras, all over the place. And it's just kind of they had him on camera, coming out of the hotel room by himself, going to a store, buying a suitcase, buying a bunch of cleaning shit, and then going back to the room, and then coming out with the suitcase, and then, there's camera of him, in the taxi, going to where he was going, and it's just, he was doing all this super sus shit, and then they finally, tracked his movements, from all the camera shit. They found the suitcase, and her body was in it, obviously. Yeah. And then they went in his hotel room. He had cleaned it up, but obviously they did luminol. There's blood all over the fucking carpet. And they caught him, and he's just, super arrogant. You can't do anything to me. This is, fucking... I was just like, what the fuck? They had him on camera, doing...
Dunning-Kruger effect.
Jesus Christ. Who the fuck do you think you are? And he had tried to do it again. He's just picking up chicks on Tinder. Yeah. And according to the girl, obviously she got murdered, but she was texting her friend and she thought he was cool. She thought he was just, normal. He just took her back to the hotel and fucking killed her. Mm-hmm. Blood everywhere. I was just and he thought he wasn't going to get caught. But he was on camera, every step of, everything. He was, at the car wash, and he was doing all this suspicious shit.
He wasn't too smart.
No, he really wasn't. But he thought he was, super smart.
He was smart, yeah.
But I guess he didn't realize he was being filmed.
He lasted one victim. After that, he was locked up.
Yeah, every single thing. Yeah. It's just crazy. Well, he had raped someone before. Right. They found out later. But he got away with that. But they didn't find out that until after the murder happened.
We've talked about it here on the show. Fucking, I've known girls that it's happened to, they get raped, and afterwards they just forget about it. They don't want to go through the system.
I can't really
It's a
blame
girl
them.
we know got raped by 5 guys.
Yeah, she was gang
picture up,
raped.
but the way it happened, they could have lied and made it sound like anything. She would have never been able to prove it. Drugs were involved. She got in the car with them.
See, that's what I mean.
Fucking,
and it's just kind of like...
She went willing them with them. They ran through her. And then they said, there's nothing you can do about it. You're here by your own will.
And honestly...
And we've been doing all these drugs together.
The sad thing is they were probably right about that.
They were like, you know...
I mean, even though she didn't consent to that, obviously, but it's just like they know that.
Yeah.
They know that you can't say anything because then they'll be like, hey, she just came with us and she did drugs with us and she did this and that and the other thing.
Took her out to a place and fucking dropped her out, fucking threw her out in the middle of nowhere naked, threw her clothes out. She put her clothes back on. Then had to walk back. Yeah.
That's what I mean. It's just
nice girl, actually. Cute goth girl. Happened when she was about 17.
Yeah. It's fucked up. Like I said, and I'm sure that that's happened to a lot of people, and you wouldn't know because they probably didn't say anything about it.
She was like, I thought they were so nice. No, they're...
You know, that's...
You didn't know them. You got
just
in the car with them.
assume everybody... Well, like I said, I don't, you know...
They say, you want to smoke some weed? Yeah, okay. She got in the car with them.
Yeah, I mean...
Only a dumb kid would do it, but...
I know, but she was just a kid.
Yeah.
That's kind of the point.
Yeah.
I mean, and I kind of feel like the whole emphasis on, oh, well, she shouldn't have done that. I was like, well, maybe they shouldn't be rapists. How about that?
Yeah. Well, they were assholes too. Some of them were ex-cons, I believe.
The onus is not always on the, I mean, the onus is always on the person doing the shit because they also have a choice. They don't have to do that
They were
shit.
guys in their 20s and they were a lot bigger than her.
Yeah, they don't have to do that shit.
She got in the car with them, though.
And they did it anyway. So that's...
Yeah.
The victim does not have any... You know,
yeah.
I don't really think there's anything to say about that. Like I said, we always blame them instead of like blaming the people that actually did the shit. I don't really get it.
Well, I tend to kind of blame them, but I'm a wise guy. You know, it's hard for me to look through the eyes of a 17-year-old girl. You know, they're gullible.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean, and that's not a crime.
Yeah.
You know. I hate to say, like, you know, we've all done dumb shit.
I would have looked at them dudes because them sketchy motherfuckers, hell no.
We've all done dumb shit. I've done dumb shit. You've done dumb shit. Everyone has done dumb shit, especially when they were young. And it's like, you don't, even if you do dumb shit, you did not deserve to have that happen to you. I don't care what anybody says. You know what I mean? I'm just saying that it's like the only person to blame is the people that actually perpetrate the shit. You know, not somebody just for being dumb or naive or whatever. That's not a crime. Sorry. So yeah, where was I? Okay. So they did get fingerprints from everywhere. So obviously the dude didn't wear gloves or anything like that. However, the fingerprints that they got didn't match anybody that was then in the database, so they were kind of back to square one again. Now, all they could think of to do was, and at this stage, I don't think that they had linked this crime with the earlier Vicky Heath crime because they were, you know, several miles apart. It was like a year later, so I don't really think they thought that much about it. I don't think they linked it at that stage. So they kind of, all they could do, it's like, you know, they pulled all the guests who were staying there, they pulled all the employees that were staying there, you know, they just did everything that they could do, like to find a lead or whatever. However, this same exact night that Peggy Gill was murdered, and the cops, while they were, like, I think it was only an hour after they found Peggy Gill's body in that Days Inn, they found out that another woman had been abducted from another Days Inn about 50 miles south of there. Now, this other Days Inn was in Remington, Indiana. So this woman was 34, and her name was Jean Marie Gilbert. Now, she had recently divorced her husband. She had a couple of kids that were older. She had like a 12-year-old son and a 17-year-old daughter. And they were actually living in a town, and I'm sure I'm pronouncing this wrong, in Indiana, called Rensselaer? Rensselaer. I see it spelled, but I'm just like, I have no idea how to pronounce that. Which was about 12 miles from the motel where she was working. You know, they were living there because her parents lived there, so she needed like family support and stuff. So she actually, the job that she had at the motel was actually her second job. It was just part-time. She actually worked full-time as a bookkeeper at the Carter Oil Company. It made decent money, but, you know, she had just divorced, and she really didn't want to remarry, and she needed another income, like, to raise her kids. So she took a second job. So she started working. She had been working at this motel for a while, but she just worked part-time. But she, again, worked overnight. She was also in school. I don't know when the poor woman slept, but you know what I mean. She was also studying to get a business degree. So there was that too. So on the same night as Peggy Gill was murdered, Jean Gilbert was at her job, at this particular job in Remington, or this particular motel in Remington, Indiana. Sadly, she was actually not supposed to work that night. She had switched shifts with another coworker because she had gone like another day to like watch her daughter. Her daughter was a cheerleader or something like that. So she had gone to watch her at a game. And so she had switched with this other coworker. So she was working. So she shows up at 11 p.m. and she was supposed to work till 8 a.m. And the second shift clerk left at midnight. Now, this particular Days Inn was a lot smaller than the one in Merrillville where Peggy was killed. And this particular town, I guess Remington, I don't know about nowadays, but this was like a little nothing town. Like all that was there where this motel was, there was like a truck stop, a gas station, and then it was just like a bunch of farmland. You know what I mean? There was like nothing. So it was kind of in the middle of nowhere a little bit. I don't know about nowadays, but it was then. So up until whatever time the shit happened, again, everything was pretty uneventful. Jean, again, was also going to school, so she would usually use her time overnight at the motel to study. There was a little room off the, from behind where the front desk was, and she would go in there and like read and stuff. So what ends up happening? So on March 3rd, 1989, at about, this is kind of confusing because I'm looking at the timelines of the two things because these two crimes happened like one after the other, like on the same night. And one of the, the Peggy Gill thing, that happened in Central Time, the Central Time Zone. Whereas this one happened in the Eastern Time Zone. So the times are, because, I mean, they're only like 50 miles apart, but they're in different time zones. So I'm sorry if that's confusing. So I'm just going to go with the Central Time Zone. That's what I'm going to go with. So Jean, the last time that they know that she was okay was about 4:30 in the morning because she called, one of the guests had wanted a 4:30 a.m. wake-up call. So she called them and, did the wake-up call. And the guest said later that, everything seemed normal. She just called like regular and said, okay, here's your wake-up call. Now, so whatever happened to her, they think happened between 4:30 a.m. and 5 a.m. Central Standard Time. They think what happened, they're not entirely certain. They think that the killer came into the office while she was in the little room, like reading or doing homework or whatever she was doing. And then she came out thinking he wanted to check in, like, hey, can I help you or whatever. And then they think maybe he either just like jumped right on her or something, like somehow controlled her like immediately. He also pried the cash register open and locked the door to the lobby. And then he took her out of the exterior door in the side office where she'd been reading. Like he dragged her out that door and stuffed her in his car. So he took her south on I-65. They know that they took exit 188, which was the first exit that didn't have any, motels or gas stations or fast food places at it. And they think that at some point, either in the car or after he got to where he was going to dump her, that's when the sexual assault and murder occurred, because it didn't happen in the motel or anywhere on the grounds. Now, at about 5:30 in the morning Central Time, they later found out that a farmer called police and reported that he had heard 2 quick gunshots, and he was kind of alarmed about it. And then at about 6 in the morning, the sheriff's office in Jasper County got a whole bunch of phone calls from guests staying at the Days Inn in Remington, and they were trying to, again, check out, and there was nobody.
County, where?
Indiana.
Indiana, okay.
Indiana.
Because there's one in Mississippi.
Well, this is all. Yeah, there's probably one in every state.
Whoa.
No, this is all Midwest.
Okay, yeah.
This is all. It's Indiana and Kentucky is where most of this shit's going on. So again, just like in the earlier case, like a bunch of guests were trying to check out, and there was nobody there, and like the lobby door was locked, and they couldn't get in. Now, at some time, like a few minutes after that, a school bus driver called the state police and said that there was a naked dead body lying on County Road 150 West. So the state police sent a car out there, and I think like the White County Sheriff's Department sent a car out there too. And at this point, the general manager of the Days Inn, whose name was Sharon Krug, she shows up about 6:45 and sees a bunch of cops and a bunch of guests like standing out in the parking lot or outside of the lobby, like waiting to get in. So she unlocks the doors and lets them in. Again, they find that the cash drawer in the office has been pried open. $247 is missing. They open the side office and see that Jean Gilbert's stuff is still there. Like all her purse, her books, the keys to the office, everything has been left behind. So at around the same time as that was happening at the motel, they find Jean Gilbert's body in a ditch on the side of County Road 150 West. The body was not hidden. It was just looked like it had been dumped. It was about 19 miles from where she had been abducted. She was laying face down in a ditch. She was naked, except she still had shoes and socks on. She had been shot 3 times with a .22. She had been shot in the back of her head, like behind her left ear. Shot once in the shoulder. And the shot that killed her went in next to the left breast, through the lung, and pierced her aorta. There were also a bunch of scrapes on her body. They thought that this was probably where she was pulled out of a truck or a van, or a car's truck or something like that. She had obviously been sexually assaulted. And when they got DNA, they would later determine, obviously, that the DNA matched the same person that had murdered Peggy Gill only a few hours before. They never did find her uniform, however. It wasn't next to her, like in the previous case. Now, records show that on January 2nd, 1990, which was a little less than a year later, the same offender struck again. This time, the victim survived, however.
They're trying to get me to put on wigs.
You trying to put on wigs?
They're trying to get me to put on wigs.
Oh, put some wigs on.
Man, we're busy. We're in the middle of a show. This shit's serious, man.
Talk about wigs, because I got to pee.
Okay. See, you guys going to bring up wigs, and then she's got to go pee. She says got to go pee. And that fucks the show up.
Don't blame them.
So I'm blaming y'all for this fucking... I used to come on here and say we got to play commercials. Now I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck about commercials. Let's see what everybody else... in case you're wondering, I'm on the tequila. Yeah, she gave me tequila for, what was that, Christmas? No. I forgot why she gave Valentine's Day, that's what it was. Gave me tequila for Valentine's Day. Expensive tequila. It's the second one of today. I made it pretty strong. I'm fucking slammed. So, it's pretty good. And we went to the South American store and got a bunch of South American juice. Let's see what everybody's doing. She's coming back out in a minute. Hold on. Allison says, Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore. Allison and Murder Hornet in there talking to each other. Look like they're getting ready to set up a date. Allison, you need to go over and fucking go see Murder Hornet down there on that Mexican border. Y'all can jump that border, go into Mexico, have all kinds of fun. He goes over there and he'll be fucking live streaming to me. Him going to Mexico, fucking with the bums. He's got a lot of Mexican friends over there. got Mexican police friends, Mexican bum friends. Then he goes to the Mexican brothel and fucking streams inside the brothel. Asks me which one to pick out. Which you haven't done that in a while. Murder Hornet.
Wait, you want to
Yeah,
look?
he hasn't
You want to
taken me
look
to the brothel.
You want to look at the hookers?
You need to take me to the brothel like back in the day.
Tom wants to go to the brothel.
I'm gonna go to the brothel
virtually.
Virtual brothel.
He wants to go to the
show me what's
virtual.
going on.
You're very red, Tom.
Yeah, fucking.
Are you really that hammered?
Yeah, starting to hit me all at once.
I'm still on my first drink.
Yeah.
Because I guess I'm talking. So.
Yeah, you're talking more.
So,
I'm drinking.
Yeah, I see that. I see that. Dave's like, wig. South American wig. It says Thomas Mashed. Yeah, he's getting a little rowdy. But yeah, I mean, I don't have a huge amount left to go, but I did want to say kind of sober for this because, I did a lot of research on this. I really did. Because I kind of went, again, like whenever it's a true crime case, I kind of go down the rabbit hole because I'm kind of fascinated by these. And this was a dude I didn't know anything about. So yeah, so this woman actually survived. So this happened January 2nd, 1990. So this woman also worked as an overnight clerk at a Days Inn. She was 21 years old. She has never been named in the media, which I can't say I fucking blame her. This actually happened in Columbus, Indiana, and she was actually raped and stabbed and robbed, but she survived, thankfully. Now, she told the police what happened was that she'd been working the overnight shift, and this dude came in the lobby and asked where he could get some food and some coffee, which is a normal question for people to come in and ask, So she kind of suggested a few places, as you would, and the man's like, okay, thanks, and then he leaves. And then, a short time later, he comes back holding a cup of coffee and then throws it in her face. And then while she's like blinded, he whips out this huge knife. Some reports say he had a pistol, but I don't know. So it was either a knife or a pistol. So he whips it out and basically is like, don't fuck with me and I won't hurt you. I just want all the money. So he wanted all the money from the cash register. He also took all of the money out of her purse and took all of her jewelry that she was wearing, like her rings and her necklaces and stuff. But like throwing coffee in her face, come on, just like, I don't know why that made me
What do you throw in her face?
Coffee, hot coffee. She said this is a woman that is the same dude,
yeah,
but she survived.
Okay.
She got raped and she got stabbed, but she lived. She said that he came in and asked, oh, where can I get food and coffee around here? And so she gave him some suggestions and he left, which was like a normal interaction, right? But then like a little while later, he comes back with a cup of coffee and just throws it in her face and blinded her. And then had a knife or a gun. I'm not really sure. I've heard like both things.
He did it to distract her.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So he steals all of the money out of the register and steals all her money and her jewelry. And then he forced her at either gunpoint or knife point to a fire escape at the rear of the hotel and raped her. And then after that, he leads her out of the hotel. He's like, I want you to walk to the parking lot behind there. I'm not really sure if he was going to take her someplace. I'm not really sure what he was doing. But he was taking her to the parking lot behind the hotel. And as she was walking, this is what I've heard reported, she kind of fell through a bunch of ice. And she fell through the ice like into a ditch. And it made like all this noise. At which point he like ran off. Because I guess he thought the noise would attract people and he was going to get in trouble. So he ran away. So she was wounded, obviously. But she managed, there was like a hill behind the motel. And there was a trailer, like there was some mobile homes up there. So she kind of managed to get up there and the person in there like called the cops for her. So she gave a very good description of the man that had done the shit to her. Said he had, they did a sketch of him and everything. He had like a kind of a hat on, like a stocking cap. And said he had a mustache and beard, green eyes, and significantly a lazy right eye, which is pretty distinctive. So that happened. Then, about a year later in 1991, in Rochester, Minnesota, another woman who was working overnight at a hotel was also raped and stabbed. And she gave them, she's also not been named, again, because, like I said, I don't blame them. She also told the cops the dude looked the same. She said he was about 6 foot, 6'2", something like that. He was a white male, had green eyes and a lazy right eye. And she said he had kind of grayish brown or reddish brown hair, kind of looked like a trucker, like he was wearing like blue jeans and a flannel shirt type of thing. Now, so this particular attack, which they know now was the same guy, but this was the only one that happened on, this one actually happened off Interstate 90 instead of Interstate I-65, like all the other ones did. Now, I will note, and I'm just going to bring this up because I saw it brought up somewhere else. There are a couple of other murders that are sometimes brought up in connection with the I-65 killer case, although nobody's sure if these are connected or not. I kind of suspect not, but I'm going to mention them anyway. So the first of these was the murder of a woman named Evelyn Wright, who was killed in December of 1988. Now, she was married and she had 2 kids, and she worked the night shift at the Colonial Inn in Rockford, Illinois. Now, she was found in the lobby by a guest. She was face down and unconscious early in the morning of December 18th. Now, paramedics were called, obviously, and at first they thought she'd had a heart attack, but then when they rolled her over, they found a gunshot wound in her chest. She had actually been shot with a .44 caliber Magnum. The cash register, again, was pried open and emptied.
Hold on.
What?
She was shot with a .44 Magnum. They couldn't see that from the back.
Well, I guess, but I don't know. I don't know if they weren't really looking. I'm just saying this is what I saw.
I say no. 44 special maybe, or 38 special. Makes more sense.
Well, no, they definitely said 44 because there was another crime that had the same.
There's a 44 specials that would probably maybe not go through you in certain ammunition selections, like a real soft flat point might not go through you. 44 Magnum would go through 3 or 4 people.
Well, see, that's what I was thinking too. But like I said, I'm just writing down what the notes I saw were. Now this happened less than a year after the first I-65 killing, which was Vicky Heath. This woman, as far as I'm aware, was not raped, though, which kind of gives me pause. Now, only a few days after that, on New Year's Eve of 1988, it was a dude this time. His name was James Walton, and he was also working a night shift, but this was at the Envoy Inn off of Interstate 71. And witnesses said that they saw a man who was actually pretty similar to the description that people gave of the I-65 killer, that he came in the lobby, and then after they heard this like big commotion, and then there were a bunch of gunshots coming from the parking lot. So later on, they found James Walton dead outside the motel with a bunch of gunshot wounds in his torso, also .44 caliber. The cash register here had also been emptied. And they found out later through ballistics that the same weapon had been used in the murder of Evelyn Wright as the murder of James Walton. So this was obviously the same perpetrator.
So special, gotta be.
Well, like I said, I'm just saying.
Charter Arms Bulldog, probably.
But so it's not real obvious if these 2 cases are linked to the other I-65 cases. The caliber of the weapons was different, obviously. The I-65 cases they know were the same guy. The first one was a .38, and the second 2 were .22s. This was a .44.
I'm not being an asshole about this. Let me explain this. .44 Magnum in this era was a very heavy pistol cartridge, mostly for hunting. They were not concealable pistols. They were big. But during this same era, there were a lot of Charter Arms. And another thing is .44 Magnum was expensive. Okay, that was an expensive pistol in those days. But .44 Special wasn't. And there was one particular pistol called a Charter Arms Bulldog, which was a 5-shot .44 Special that you could get for under $100. There were a lot of them out there, and it was an effective, small, concealable firearm that fired. .44 Special is based on .44 Russian rimfire or .44 rimfire, and it was kind of like .45 ACP, which was but it was low velocity, heavy bullet, not moving fast. It was like a bigger version of .38 Special, and it didn't make much noise because it was low pressure. So it's more likely that, kill with a .44 was probably a .44 Special out of a Charter Arms Bulldog. In this era, there were a lot of them. They were in the 70s, 80s, early 90s. .44 Magnum, that was not very concealable. It was loud. and it would go through 3 people. More of something you shot bear with or deer. We'll see.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't know if I'm entirely convinced. I mean, this might be the same dude.
Yeah.
But like I said, the caliber of the weapon was different, which doesn't mean a lot because the caliber of the weapon in the first case as opposed to the second 2 that were committed the same night were also different. And that was the same guy because they knew because it was the DNA. But as I said, in this case, like the female victim was not raped, and she was kind of left in the lobby, which was a little unusual. And the second victim was a guy, which, I don't know if that's the same guy or not. It's similar, but I don't know. It could very well be the same dude because, like I said, when we get into talking about the actual guy,
the MO sounds the same.
It does sound kind of similar.
Yeah.
And those 2 cases are still unsolved. So there's that.
He may have had a 44 Charter Arms Bulldog, in which there were a lot of them out there. They were cheap. I just can't picture a guy running around with a full fucking end frame Smith & Wesson 44 Magnum revolver with a 6-inch barrel, and he's fucking hiding it. And the unnecessary noise and blast, and they're slow to shoot. He said it was rapid fire sounding. 44 Special, probably.
Well, that wasn't this case. That was
a different case?
That was
Okay.
a different case.
All right,
That was a different case I was talking about.
Matter of fact, I think Son of Sam used the Charter Arms 48.
Xanadu just said that. Son of
Yeah.
Sam used a 44 Special
Yeah.
Bulldog.
Yeah, there was a lot of them out there, and they were effective. You had 5 shots, or 5 shots for certain. You didn't have to worry about jamming or anything. It was a revolver, and it was mild, easy to shoot, and effective at close range. A heavy bullet moving slow, very soft, and it didn't penetrate very deeply, which that fits that crime scene you told me.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this could very well be the same dude. On the other hand, it could also be because, sadly, sad to say, motels and gas stations and stuff like that are on the sides of highways get robbed quite a bit. So this could very well just be a robbery gone wrong. The fact that the woman in the first case was not raped kind of leads me to believe it wasn't the same dude, but who knows? I mean, because, like I said, when we talk about who this dude actually was...
She could have resisted and got away from him and he shot her.
Right. I mean, he did do some shit where rape wasn't involved, too. So it could very well be the same guy. Because, like I said, these 2 cases are not solved. So it could very well be that same guy. So the cases, the I-65 murders, initially were not really linked. Obviously, the 2 that happened on the same night were, because they knew that was the same dude, but they didn't necessarily link them to the first one, the Vicky Heath one, that had taken place like a year earlier. So it was kind of a cold case. But then, in 2008, when DNA, forensics had come up to snuff, they actually submitted all the evidence that they had for analysis. And at that stage, a couple of years later, after all the analysis was done, in 2010, they determined that the DNA evidence in the 3 murders that I talked about was the same dude. It was the same DNA. So at that point, they were like, well, okay, this is officially a serial killer. The same DNA was found on at least 4 other cases, including the 2 that I talked about earlier, where the women were raped and robbed, but, they survived the attacks, you know what I mean? And they were all along that same corridor, like in the Midwest. These attacks had all happened between January and March. So the cops were thinking, because they didn't know who he was at this point. So they were like, well, maybe he's a seasonal worker, or they thought maybe he was a truck driver or some kind of traveling salesman or something of that nature. So they didn't know who this fucker was until 2022. In that year, they finally matched his DNA with a family member and determined that he was Harry Edward Greenwell. And the testing that they did came up, this was like a 99.9999% certainty that that's who this dude was. So the state police, the Indiana State Police, came out and announced this on April 5th of 2022 and said that they are also keeping open the possibility that this motherfucker is responsible for many other unsolved crimes in the Midwest that happen around this era. So who is this motherfucker. Let's talk about him. Once they found out who he was. Harry Edward Greenwell. Originally from Louisville, Kentucky. Born in 1944. Now, he had, I don't know if I want to call it an extensive criminal record, but it's like a lot more of a criminal record than regular people would have. Let's put it like that. He first came to the attention of authorities when he was about 18 or 19 years old. On January 17th, 1963, he was arrested for an armed robbery in Louisville and got 2 years in reformatory and then got 5 years probation. So that was his first offense that we know of, that he got caught for. Let's put it like that. Then, in late February of 1965, shortly after his release, he was arrested again in Jefferson County, Kentucky, this time on a sodomy charge, which, to be honest, it's like, I don't know. I'm not going to say don't count that, but it's just kind of like, unless it was forcible rape, I mean, sodomy is not really a crime anywhere anymore. Well, maybe it is in some states.
Well, it may have been.
But it was at the time. It was illegal.
That may have been a lesser charge.
Right.
Maybe he was doing something else, and then the only thing they could actually
right.
prove
It could have
was
been that. It could have been that.
So it might have been more like forcible rape.
That's
but
yeah.
They couldn't prove that.
But that's what the charge was sodomy. So I don't know what the exact circumstances were, but that's what he was charged with. So he was imprisoned again and put in the Kentucky State Penitentiary for about 4 years. Now, he got out on parole in 1969. Now, as far as we know, he seems to have behaved himself for a while after that. Although, I don't know. I kind of feel like he probably got up to all kind of shit and didn't get caught for it, but I don't know. I can't prove that. But around this time, he even got married at some point around this time period, like right around the mid-70s. Now, on April 28th of 1978, Greenwell's wife, who was then 23 years old, and I believe her name was Terry Jo Hastings, she died in a house fire in Vernon County, Wisconsin. Now, the first thing I thought, as you were probably thinking right now, is that motherfucker burned the house down and, like, killed his wife. Now, he was... Okay, and I guess the police did think of that, too. Because they did kind of get him an alibi. He was a railroad worker, and he was actually working. He was still in Wisconsin, but he was way on the other side of the state when the fire happened, and the authorities did rule that the fire was accidental. So take of that what you will. So I don't, because the first thing I thought was, holy shit, he killed his first wife, but I don't know if that's the case. So there was that. So after his first wife died in the fire, which he apparently did not set, although I'm not sure if I believe that or not. He met another woman who was, at the time, 39 years old, and she was a single mother, and her name, I think, was Julie Jenkins. I have seen some sources that just called her Jenny Greenwell, which is his name. So I'm not real sure about the timeline of this, because I thought he only married 2 times, and that his first wife was Terry Jo Hastings, and she was the one that died in the fire. And then I thought he married a second time, and that she was the one that was with him, like, when he died. But I don't know if that's the case, because I keep seeing 2 different names, so I don't know how that goes. So, like I said, just take everything with a grain of salt. Now, this woman that he met, who I'm just going to call Julie, because I think that's what her name is, but she had previously been in an abusive relationship, which sadly, she ended up in another one, I hate to tell you. But, so they got married in August of 1980. Now, Greenwell already had a daughter that I guess was his first wife's, maybe, but he had adopted her. So he had an adopted daughter, and then him and his new wife had a son, like they had a son together. So they're married for 2 years. I'm sure everything was just peachy keen. That was sarcasm if you didn't catch that. But in 1982, Greenwell gets arrested again and sent to prison for a burglary in Lansing, Iowa. He actually, as far as I could determine, he stole a bunch of batteries from, like, a farm store.
Okay.
and got
What kind of
arrested.
batteries? Car batteries?
I don't know what kind of batteries.
Must have been car batteries.
Well, it was a bunch of It was like 40 batteries. So I don't know. How would you steal 40 batteries? Like
Car battery? You need a truck.
Yeah, like I said, you need a truck or a pallet.
That would be
pull
worth
it a
the
pallet
money,
or something.
because,
Yeah, because just like fucking Evereadys or something like that. It's like they're expensive, but they're not that expensive.
Car batteries.
Yeah,
Right.
maybe. But that's all it just said 40 batteries.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like, I don't know what kind of batteries you're talking about. Now, while he was, like, he gets arrested, and he actually...
It had to be car batteries. If
Yeah.
it wasn't, it would be petty theft.
True. Yeah, he wouldn't go to prison for that.
No.
Can you refill my...
Yeah.
Shit. I'm still, like I said, I'm still on my
Yeah.
first drink. And you're, like, red and everything.
I'm red?
Yeah.
Man, leave me alone.
You're really red. Well, because you drank a lot, I guess. But yeah, well, somebody on there said you were really red, too. You're really red. But yeah, so he gets arrested for the battery incident, and he actually split, like he escaped from police custody. Now, I think they caught him again, like pretty much like a day or two later. They picked him up again, and then they arrested him again, and then he escaped again. But I think he was on the lam for like 9 days this time. I think it was 9 days. And then he got caught because somebody saw his picture like on a wanted poster or some shit like that and was like, hey, that motherfucker is like over here. So they came and picked him up again. So yeah, so he was one of those motherfuckers that he gets arrested and then he just keeps trying to escape, you know what I mean? But they kept picking him up again because he's obviously not that bright. So when they finally caught him and they put him in prison, so he goes to the Anamosa State Penitentiary, and then they send him to the Kentucky State Reformatory, and then he's in there for a little while. He gets released in 1983. And at this point, he goes and finds another job, which, like I said, even previous to this, he had worked on railroads. So that's what he got a job doing. He was like a railroad worker. And he worked like all around the Midwest, like working on the railroad, like you do. So he was also arrested. Like I said, he was not identified as the I-65 killer until 2022, which many years after he died, as I said. But he had a bunch of other arrests too, and listen to this shit. Listen to this litany of bullshit that this guy was doing. Which, like I said, reading all this stuff, this just makes me think there must be so many other unsolved crimes out here that this motherfucker did that they haven't figured out yet. So he gets out of prison in 1983, and I guess everything's, well, I don't know if everything's fine, but like he doesn't get caught for anything for a little while. But then in 1989, he gets arrested again for some unspecified traffic violation, but he also gets arrested for a domestic incident, which is what they called it, in La Crosse, Wisconsin. And I was kind of like, domestic incident. Let's drill down into that. What is that exactly? Because
Victor's here. What's up, Victor?
What's up, Victor? Hey.
He finally showed up.
Yeah.
Let's see what it made him gay.
Okay. Yeah, what made you gay
Something
today?
made you gay today. We're gonna see.
Every day it's different. That's so fun.
Jan Michael Vincent made him gay one of these days. He told me that last time.
Really?
Just about.
I don't know.
That was months ago.
Could he really make anyone
I think he
gay?
said Jan Michael Vincent.
I mean,
made him
okay.
gay. I'm red as a motherfucker. Been drinking, bro.
Yeah, I don't know what that's about. I've never seen you get that red.
It hit me like a fucking ton of bricks. It's that high quality tequila.
Oh, that's the tequila I bought him for Valentine's Day.
Yeah. It's that Valentine's.
I got him the good shit. I got him the good shit.
I got a thing for
Clearly,
tequila.
he loves tequila.
I love it.
Well, yeah, because I made him like a big bag for Valentine's Day. It had movies and in there and candy
It's that
and all this other
spiritual
stuff.
Mexican
And I was
inside
like, I'm gonna get him some really nice tequila.
Yeah, it's that.
So I got you like the
it's that
expensive stuff.
spiritual Mexican in me. It's those Aztec race memories.
Okay.
But they're spiritual.
I get
Spiritual, yeah. I'm not genetically related to the Aztecs, just spiritually.
it. Yeah.
I cut a heart out of a motherfucker too. Yeah.
I mean, I could probably be
understand.
persuaded to do that depending on what they did.
Yeah. Doing this show. Yeah, doing this show. I understand them.
Yeah, you get it. Xana said I get all the interstate killers mixed up because there was more than one. Yeah, I might bring up. Yeah, I'm gonna bring up in a minute, like, because there's another one that's kind of famous that actually hasn't been identified yet. That some people think that maybe this is that guy too, but we'll see. I'm not sure.
I believe that the age of the serial killer as we know it has come to an end. Really, it was a pre-internet era, an era based around cars and interstates and leaded gasoline. I think had a lot to do with it.
Yeah, we've talked. Like I said, I think that is a very good theory.
Yeah, and sexual repression.
Yeah, big time.
And it was a Western guy thing, you know. There were some of them in Central and South America, but it just, I don't know. It was a Western fucking white guy thing. In generally, there were some black ones, but
not many.
Not many. And
we've done shows about like the handful of like black serial killers, but there's really not that. It's kind of a white dude thing.
Well, it might be statistically less likely for black guys.
I guess
they're only 13%. Black people are only 13% of the American
that's
population,
true.
so there's going to be less. And then half of them are women, and then a lot of them are too young or too old. So you're probably only, when it comes to serial killers from the black population, you're talking maybe what, 3%?
It's a small, it's like 3%. Not much of a pool to draw from.
So now you're drawing from the 3% eligible. There's going to be less of them.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
Well, just like I said, even though there's technically statistically like slightly more women than men, but there's still like women constitute what 10 to 15% of serial killers. Maybe not even that many.
Women can't be a serial killer. They don't have the sexual.
Well, they can be, but they have, like I said, they have different motives.
They're going to end up being poisoners, angel of mercy, or
they
angel
go
of
about
death
things
type
in a different way.
That poison people while they're in the hospital.
Women can be lunatics for real,
right.
but
it's not going to manifest itself the same way.
They go about shit in a different way. Except for Aileen Wuornos.
Serial killers are serial rapists. That's all they are. They just kill the victim. There are very few serial rapist females. It's
just something that doesn't occur to us, honestly.
It's not in them. It's not in them. It's not in their sex drive.
It's just we were kind of talking about that earlier, where I was just kind of like, even if I had permission to like, hey, go fuck whoever you want to.
Yeah, if I said, Jenny, go fuck some dudes, she'd like, nah, I don't feel like it.
Nah, it doesn't sound that appealing. Yeah. But if you said to your husband or whatever, hey, go fuck whatever girls you want, all right.
Yeah, he'd be like, okay, so it's okay.
Awesome.
I'll be back tomorrow. Fucking. Yeah.
That's what I mean.
All right.
You better not.
You gonna give me a fucking permission slip? All right.
I'm not giving you a permission slip.
But that's what. That's what.
But yeah, like it's not the same the other way around.
Same.
Like if you told me like, oh, go fuck whoever you want, I'd be like, nah.
It's the same.
I'm just gonna stay here and like
with serial murder.
I'm just gonna stay here and read.
You're talking about women with high kill counts. It's always some kind of she's either a black widow, killing dude back in the Victorian era, killing dudes for fucking insurance money.
Yeah, for money, for practical reasons. Like I said, that's fucked up to say, but
she's some kind of weird abortionist where she's not really doing an abortion. She's claiming that she's giving these babies out for adoption, but she's killing them.
Like Amelia Dyer.
Yeah, or she's a poisoner, where she just likes to poison people. She's a nurse and she likes to kill people, and she thinks it's kind of like it's like a Munchausen by proxy.
Yeah, it's usually something like that.
Right.
It's not you. Like I said,
the motive isn't sexual.
It's not usually a sexual motive. Not usually.
With serial killing is a male thing and it's sex.
Yeah, it's dudes that have like a weird pathology or weird fetishistic
sex and death coming together.
Right. Like, and they can't separate the two things.
And anger and hatred all coming together. Yeah.
So yeah, that's usually what it is. So like I said, there absolutely are women serial killers. Like I said, we've talked about a lot of them on the show.
It doesn't look the same.
But it's not the same. Like I said, usually if women kill people for practical reasons, like just for money or to get somebody out of the way, or
even Eileen Wuornos does not fit a male serial killer. She wasn't raping those dudes.
No.
She was just killing them because
she
it was practical.
She just wanted their money.
She wanted their money. So that's the same as a serial poisoner or a black widow.
She was just unusual because she did it more dude-like, because she just like shot him in the face.
Well, she was a lesbian.
Yeah, so it was just kind of, but like you said, it still wasn't sexual. She wasn't being like, ooh, she wasn't like getting off on it, I don't think. She was just doing it because she thought they were disgusting and she wanted them off. I cannot
think of a single case where you got some hot chick who's going, where are these hot dudes? I want to fuck them and kill them. That's just doesn't happen.
Yeah, I can't think of one either.
I want to see what those hot dudes
like
look
I said,
like
our brains just don't.
They don't work that way.
Work like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's, I'm sure there's outliers. I'm sure there are some like that, and I'm sure somebody can, but I can't think of one offhand.
That is a dude thing. It's a dude who's not getting any fucking...
It's a very severe dude.
It's a dude, he's kind of like an incel. He hates women. But he's attracted to them, and he hates the fact that he's attracted to them.
Yeah.
And he's thinking that they must be more powerful than me because they're manipulating me through my desire. I'm going to show them,
Yeah.
What I mean?
That's exactly what it is.
It's shit like that.
That's exactly what it is.
It's kind of like a immaturity.
Yeah, big time.
Big immaturity, yeah.
Yeah, they're stunted.
Yeah.
They're stunted.
Yeah, even and the best one was fucking what's his name? Fucking the so-called best one. You know what I'm talking about.
I know.
Ted Bundy.
Yeah.
And there wasn't shit to Ted Bundy really either.
He was a disgusting pig.
Yeah. The dude fucked severed heads. All right?
And yes, we never fail to remind people of that because it's just like, look, all that shit about it's like, oh, he was so handsome and he's the hottest serial killer and I'm gonna write him fan letters and all this. He fucked severed heads. He kept severed heads.
And he couldn't keep a relationship.
As sex toys.
He couldn't keep a relationship.
He was disgusting.
And he was an economic failure.
Yeah.
All right. He was fake.
Yeah.
Really.
Just because he was like okay looking.
Yeah, it didn't mean much.
He would get a pass, whereas like somebody like fucking the Green River Killer, like whatever, like who looked like Gollum, like not even that handsome. You know what I mean? Like,
he was a loser.
He looked like a total creep. Yeah. But if you look somewhat normal as a serial killer, you get a lot of leeway, I guess, because they can get away with shit. Yeah. But I will say,
real men don't do this crime.
I would hope not.
No. Real men aren't hung up on sex, really.
Well, the thing about it is, like, look, I know everybody has, like, freaky thoughts and, like, weird fantasies and stuff like that. I do, you do, everybody does. But it's just kind of like, this kind of shit, though, I mean, this is, like, way beyond the pale. Way beyond the pale. And,
somebody
like, look.
has to die for this?
Right. And, look, the thing about it, like, look, I love horror. I will watch fake shit all day long. And... It's not the same. It's not the same. I don't want to see like real shit like that. And like reading about real shit like upsets me. You know what I mean? So I'm just saying. So, okay. So where was I? All right. So even though this shithead, Greenwell, like I said, he wasn't identified as the perp until 2022, which was only a couple years ago. And by that point, he'd already been dead for almost 10 years. But like I said, he did get arrested for the traffic violation in 1989. And also because I'm reading the shit and it says a domestic incident. I was like, oh, I need to find out more about that. So I did a deep dive about that. I was like, what is this domestic incident? And I found out what it was. This happened in La Crosse, Wisconsin. What happened was that he reportedly broke into the house of, I believe, his second wife, Julie's mom, so his mother-in-law. The two of them, here's what I heard. Like I said, him and his second wife I think he only married 2 times. So him and his second wife were on again, off again. So she would leave sometimes and then come back and they would get back together and blah, blah, blah. So at this point, she had moved out and had moved in with her mom. So he went to her house, the mom's house, dragged his wife into the street, threatened her, I'm presuming that he said he was going to kill her, and then attempted to strangle her. Now, she got away, and she reported the incident to the cops. However, only 2 days later, apparently there was another altercation between the two of them, like at a local tavern or restaurant or something like that. I guess he went in there and tried to fuck with her again. Now, according to the Indianapolis Star, because I found like a timeline of like all his previous crimes and stuff, they said that she filed for divorce in 1986. But the thing about it was that I read an article where she was talking, and the article was from 2022 after they identified him as the I-65 killer. And they were interviewing her, like, did you know about this? Like, how do you feel about this? Blah, blah, blah. And she said they'd been married for 20 years and she didn't know anything. So I'm assuming, unless he married a third time, which I don't think he did, that even though she filed for divorce in 1986, I'm guessing that they didn't actually divorce. I'm not entirely sure. But I did see that she filed for divorce in 1986. Like I said, they were very on again, off again. He was kind of abusive. Like I said, dragged her out of the house. That's what it was. He dragged her out of the house and tried to strangle her. That was what the domestic incident was. A month after that, after he dragged her out of the house and tried to strangle her, he was arrested for violating a restraining order, which I assume that she had taken out against him, and got sentenced to 15 months probation. That was in April of 1989. Now, this kind of goes quiet for almost 10 years at this point, so I don't know what the fuck he was up to. But in October of 1998, please take this with a grain of salt, because I just saw this in one or two places and it wasn't repeated in some other place, so I don't know if this is true or not. But what I heard was that Greenwell was allegedly stabbed by his 15-year-old stepdaughter. Probably with good reason, I'm going to say. Now, during the investigation into this crime, allegedly, Greenwell was arrested for either felony drug possession or felony firearm possession, because he was on probation at this point, so he wasn't allowed to have, obviously, either drugs or firearms. So I don't know what they found during the course of the investigation, but it was one of those two things. It was either drugs or firearms.
I bet you that wasn't the problem.
So they arrested him for that.
I bet you that wasn't the problem. I bet you the problem was sexual assault against the stepdaughter.
That was kind of where my mind was going
to.
too.
During the investigation, they found drugs or guns, and they put that on him. Yeah. To get him out.
Because when I heard, like I said, I don't know if this is true, because the Indy Star didn't report this, but I did see it in other sources, that his stepdaughter had stabbed him, and I was just kind of like, oh, I know why that probably happened.
Yeah, but they couldn't prove that.
Good for her.
They found other shit they could prove on it easier.
Yeah. So maybe that's what it was.
Easier.
So he was. I don't know if it was drugs or firearms, but it was one of those things. They found something, and they're like, okay, well, they arrested him for that.
Yeah.
And he was also he was arrested again. I guess he kind of either got out of that or he was just out on bail or whatever. And then a month after that, he got arrested again for violating a restraining order. Although this time the charges were dropped almost immediately. Now Greenwell. They think, as I said, and I kind of think this too, they think that he is probably responsible for many more robberies, rapes, murders. And they think because his hunting grounds were generally along I-65, that any crimes that were committed of this nature, like from Gary, Indiana down to Mobile, Alabama, which is the length of that highway, could possibly be attributed to him, and they are still investigating that to this day. Some researchers, I'm not sure, I don't know, this might be something, but some researchers have even speculated that he might also be responsible for the crimes that were committed by the still unidentified I-70 killer, which, like I said, somebody was like saying earlier, it's all these interstate killers. I can't keep track of them. There is actually an I-70 killer who they don't know who it is. This person, they know that they murdered at least 6 people, possibly as many as 9 or maybe more. And these were all store clerks. This all happened, it was kind of like a spree. It happened like in the spring of 1992. So this would be not too long after Greenwell stopped his little rapey hotel shit.
Yeah.
Maybe he was changing his MO. You know what I mean? What happened in the I-70 cases generally was that he would go into not motels, but he would go into usually like specialty stores or like boutique type stores where there was somebody working, generally somebody that was kind of younger, brunette, kind of small. And he would go in there and rob them and shoot them. I don't know if they were raped. That's the only thing. One of the victims of the I-70 kills was a man, but they don't know if that was like mistaken. Like he thought that a woman would be working and he went in there. It was a man, so he just like killed him anyway. You know what I mean? And only small amounts of cash were usually taken. So that's kind of similar to the I-65 kind of shit.
He's taking cash because he needs gas money.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, I don't think the cash is... He robs the places, but I think that's just like a bonus.
Yeah.
I think he just wants to, like, kill the people.
Yeah, he's trying to, but he needs gas money.
The only reason, I mean, I kind of think, because I was looking up the I-70s, because I had remembered kind of hearing about the I-70 thing. And I was like, man, I got to look that shit up, because maybe it's the same dude, you know what I mean? And I'm not the only person that's thought that. And it's interesting that the I-70 cases happened about a year after the last rape that was attributed to the I-65 killer. And it's not the same MO, but it's very similar. But the only thing about it is that the I-70 cases, I don't think any of them were raped, as far as I know. Which seems unusual because he does seem like a rapist. But his early crimes were all robberies, like armed robberies. So it could be that he's just going back to his roots. I'm not really sure. Whoever the I-70 killer is, whether it's this dude or another dude, he's also suspected of shooting 3 more store clerks in Texas in 1993 and 1994. One of them survived, but the other 2 were killed. And there was also a 2001 murder in Indiana of a store clerk that was murdered that they think is the same person. So whether that's Greenwell or not, they're still kind of looking into that possibility, which, I don't know, that seems something that they probably should look into. So Greenwell, meanwhile, this motherfucker, whether he was doing all this stuff on the down low, I don't really know. But he had a job at the Canadian Pacific Railway for 30 years. He worked on the railroad for 30 years.
Oh, shit.
He retired in February of 2010. And the whole time that he was living there, he lived in this little town in Iowa. And everybody fucking thought he was the coolest shit ever. Like, everyone just thought he was the nicest man.
Now, the railroad, did he travel or did he stay still the 30 years?
No, he moved around. Like, he was working on... He was a railway worker. So they would send him... I don't know. Or if they'd send him to different cities and different...
You got to remember the Panzerram, one of the worst
of
all. Fucking basically rode trains and fucking jumped trains constantly. That's another way. See, we think of the highway today, but back in the day, it was done from trains, from the rails.
Yeah.
So he could have killed a bunch of people there too.
That's what I'm thinking. It's like, and if he killed a bunch of people like that, it's like they might not have linked them.
All right.
Yeah.
Although rail was not as popular in the 90s, in the 80s, as it was in the 30s when Panzerram was doing it. Because the interstate system wasn't finished yet. The rail system came first. Difficult to say. You're not going to have a bunch of hotties running around railroad tracks.
That's true.
Not like back in the day. But no, chances are he killed some people while he was working too.
Well, see, that's what I find it very hard to believe, given his proclivities, that he only killed the 3 people and raped the 2 to 4 people that they know of. I feel like
of them, that means you've done 7, 8, 9,
I kind of
10.
feel like it's probably like exponentially larger.
Yeah, probably bigger.
And they just haven't linked him to him.
That's not something you just do every now and then.
Yeah.
That's part of your sexual orientation.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that it's like it doesn't happen, that there's like a big gap in between, because like, you know, again, we tried to like look at BTK, like look at Dennis Rader, like he did the shit and then he stopped on his own for a long time, but then like he couldn't stand it anymore, so he didn't kill anybody again, but he started contacting the media again. That was how he got caught.
It's sexual.
It's like they can't stand it. Yeah.
He had sexual problems.
Yeah. He did. He's back there on he's right there.
Yeah.
Oh, we haven't had Dennis on the show in a long time. What do you think about this case, Dennis?
Well, you know, kind of an amateur compared to me, not much style.
I mean, that is true.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's a good thing to have. But I mean, they can stop on their own, but usually they don't. And
they stop because they get old.
Yeah, and they can't do it anymore.
They get old, and the hormones subside. They're not quite pumping as much. They're not bumping as much testosterone as they used to. The sex drive's kind of mellowed some. This is sex to these guys.
Yeah, this is kind of why I think, because Xanad is pointing out, it's like the I-70 killer we're talking about now, who is unidentified. Says he targeted women but accidentally killed a man with long hair once. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And he usually just walked in and shot people. I didn't hear anything about sexual assaults. Yeah, I didn't either. When I was like reading everything about the I-70 killer, because I was like, oh, is this the same motherfucker? And apparently like law enforcement may like have been looking into that possibility too. But the MO is similar but not quite the same. Like I said, he's not raping the women, which to me suggests that that's maybe not the same person, but which is, I don't know if that's like more or less scary, because now there's like two of this. Because the I-70 killer, if it's not this motherfucker, then they don't know who the fuck it is. They still don't.
The only one I was thinking about that fucking just killed him without really raping him would have been fucking Son of Sam.
Yeah.
He also used a 44 Special Bulldog.
Well, and Zodiac.
Yeah. Zodiac too, but he didn't use a 44 Bulldog. It could have been he was homaging Son of Sam in some of those kills. But weird. We don't know.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
There'd be no way to knowing if you don't have DNA.
Well, I mean, the scary thing about it is that the way that the American highway system is, it makes it really easy, if you're inclined to be a serial killer, it makes it really easy. Not so much nowadays, but like especially like back in the 70s and 80s, if you were a trucker and you just went from city to city, like all across the United States, you could just like pick up women wherever, like, and kill them and dump them in like in another town, and they would never link the shit.
In those days.
Like nowadays you get your ass caught, but like back then they still don't know who some of those motherfuckers were, and I suspect that there were a lot more of them running around than we realize.
I drove from here to Heidelberg, Mississippi using GPS, and part of the GPS sent me through places in Alabama, going through Alabama to come through the backside of Mississippi that I didn't even know existed. And for hours, 6 hours, I didn't see a soul. And I was
That's what I mean. You could have raped, murdered, and dumped a woman in that gap, and no one
seen a woman
would have seen you.
If I had seen a woman, I didn't even see a soul. I didn't see for a good 4 hours. Didn't even see another car.
Yeah. Which I don't like driving in places.
No cars in the oncoming lane. Weird shit like that. It's just,
I don't like that.
It's like Hansel and Gretel. You're in the fucking forest.
Yeah.
Going through roads that I didn't even know existed. They weren't even 2 lanes. They were more like 1.5. That's how badass GPS technology is now.
It knows where
Back in the 90s,
is.
I would have never known that those roads even existed. It saved me hours.
Well, yeah.
And it was going through Alabama to come up through the backside of Mississippi. And I thought I knew Mississippi. I thought that I knew the route it was going to take me. I thought it was going to, it'll probably take me to Biloxi. And I'll go up fucking north and go up, through fucking Hattiesburg. And then, it took me directly there. And I didn't see a soul through most of it. It was a trip. But back in these days, there were trucking routes, and they weren't using GPS. They were going through interstates, major interstates, and there was a bunch of truck stops along the way. And most people were on them. So you would have had a lot more movement. But it was chilled out last time I went through these areas. This is a couple months ago. Sleepy and relaxing. I love the journey.
I'm just saying, like, I wouldn't want to drive that by myself, though, because
yeah,
there's, like, nobody around.
It was very different than driving it back in the 90s.
Well, yeah.
Very different. Because I have a damn computer telling me if you go this route, you'll save 45 minutes. And I'm going, yeah, let's go that route.
Yeah. Well,
and I'm listening to fucking YouTube the whole way. I'm listening to Wang.
He listened to Wang the whole way.
Listen to Wang. He's telling me all kinds of stories and shit. Fucking, it was a great journey. It wasn't like it was back in the day where you got a damn paper map.
Like I said, I would never go back to those days. That sucked so
You're not
hard.
sure where you are.
Like, we didn't know any better back then, but everything was a huge pain in the ass.
Yeah,
man. Everything was like a huge ordeal.
It was like the old West.
Everything was a huge ordeal. Everything is so easy now.
Yeah, it's easy now.
It's so much better.
An idiot could survive today.
Well, many of them do. Well, I mean, idiots have survived through... I don't know how they do, but idiots have survived all throughout history. So, I don't think it's any different in that regard. There have been idiots surviving all, as far as I can remember. Xanada says, your guys' Panzram episode is an all-time classic. I need to go back and listen to that. That dude, wow, man, what a fucking... Every time I kind of think of, oh, well, everybody's kind of a person and they deserve to be treated like a person. And then I think, oh, well, Carl Panzram existed, so maybe not. Maybe not. That dude, I don't even know. I don't even know what that was about. So, yeah. So, Greenwell, so like I said, despite being a serial killer, and like I said, I'm pretty sure he committed a lot more murders than they know of. So he had a job. He had a stable job for 30 years at the Canadian Pacific Railway, and he retired in February 2010. So he lives in this little town in Iowa. Everybody thinks he's fucking awesome. They just were like, he was the best guy. He was like so generous. He gave all these people like money to charity. He had like all of these, he did organic gardening, and he would show up like every week at the farmer's market and like sell all of his produce, and everybody knew him. And, you know, he was just this, everybody knew him and everybody thought he was awesome, which fucking kills me. So he lived like that for, you know, the 3 years after he retired. And then he died from cancer. He was free as a bird, not in prison, nothing like that. So he was 68 years old when he died. He died in Lansing, Iowa, like I said, in 2013. I found his obituary online. His obituary called him, and this is a quote, "A man with many friends who loved his straight-up attitude and his willingness to help anyone. His spirit will live on in many by good deeds he offered." This is before, like I said, he died in 2013. They didn't find out he was a serial killer until 2022. So everyone thought he was like awesome. Also in the obituary, it said he was survived by his wife, Julie Jenkins, who, like I said, I found an interview with her later, and she said she was married to him for 20 years and had no idea. She had a son. He had a son and a daughter, like I mentioned before. They were named in the obituary, but then it said survived by, quote unquote, 5 children of Maryland. I was like, what does that mean? 5
other children that fucking he didn't
acknowledge? Or I mean, well, he did acknowledge, obviously, because it was in the obituary, but
okay.
I was like, 5 children in Maryland? What is
Who
that?
knows?
So, like, I saw that in the obituary, and I was just like, I wondered about that. They didn't name them. He had 7 siblings and a whole bunch of nieces and nephews. Now, so, as I said, I read an article about Julie Jenkins when they were asking her about him, like in 2022, after they found out he was a serial killer. And her quote was, she was in her 70s at the time, and she says, and this is a quote, "I keep thinking about our life together, and he was kind, he was caring, he did have a temper, but that's not unusual." Which I was kind of like, that's kind of a sad thing.
He kept it compartmentalized like fucking...
I get, well,
like
now,
Dennis did.
Here's the thing, though. If this is the same woman that he was talking about before, they were married 20 years, and she had a restraining order against him on multiple occasions, and he also, like, threatened, he also tried to strangle her at one point and was arrested for that. She did not. She did not. Well, and the thing about it, and she even said, because I read an interview with her, she had been in an abusive relationship before that.
Yeah.
And then ended up in another one, which sadly that's all too common. But you know, because dudes know to prey on that type of woman. So, you know, so the fact that she said, I don't know, that just kind of broke my heart when she said he had a temper, but that's not unusual. I was just kind of, that made me so sad. But she said, "I don't think you kill people because you're mad at them, not strangers. I don't know what to think about much of it. Other than that, I feel horrible for the families that dealt with that for so many years, and I know there's nothing I can do." Yeah. And she said, "I'm sorry, I had no idea." And so then they asked her, well, what do you think about, you know, the cops saying that probably your husband probably killed more people, which I think he almost certainly did. She said, "It's certainly a possibility. When you know what you do about serial killers, they generally don't just stop."
Yeah.
So I pray that there aren't going to be more victims that he's linked to, but I fear there's a real possibility. So she seems to know that.
Well, of course.
Yeah. But she didn't know.
What can she do about it? She didn't know.
That's what I mean. I really don't think. And then she said, I'm sorry for those people as well. It makes me not trust my judgment, she said. Which that poor lady. Like I said, she's in her 70s now. And it's like, and then this many years later, because the dude died in 2013, right? And they seem to have had, from what I could glean, not the most stable relationship, right? Because she kept moving out and then kept moving back, and then she had restraining orders and blah, blah, blah. He tried to strangle her. There was a whole thing. So, so the fact that she's saying, I can't trust my judgment, I don't know. It's just the whole interview that I read with her just made me really sad. It just made me really sad.
She's a woman of another era.
I mean, she didn't, she didn't know.
Yeah.
But the shitty thing is that all of the people in little Lansing, Iowa, where he was living, they didn't know shit either.
Yeah.
He was just living there regular, like, hey, I'm at the farmer's market selling my organic produce. And everyone's like, hey, what a cool guy.
Yeah.
He's a fucking serial killer. You never know, man. That's what I'm telling you. You never know. It's fucking scary when you think about it.
A lot of those guys from his era, though, were kind of dicks, coming out of fucking the Korean War, Second World War.
They were, yeah.
So it was kind of, their standards for what normal was different. It was kind of expected that a dude was kind of had a bad temper and fucking he would.
Yeah, they didn't really. They just kind of like nowadays people would be like, bro, but it's like
a red flag
back
today.
then they'd be like, well, dude, they're just
guys
like
that.
They're just like that.
Yeah.
Which, like I said, that kind of makes me sad because you really shouldn't have to put up with that behavior from anybody, no matter who it is. But back then it was just kind of expected. Like, oh, they're gonna slap their wives around. They're gonna like get upset.
It's like that
and
in a lot of countries today.
It is,
China's
yeah.
like
I know,
that,
I know.
I mean? And these were not fucking huge dudes. They were fucking just very average and below average physicality. A lot of the guys. They had a lot of pressure on them, and there wasn't much to them. You know what I mean? And so they would lash out. Fucking shit. You can see it today in some of the shit you hear about. Like in other countries, China, India. There are guys who are kind of like on the lower end of the fucking socioeconomic spectrum, middle to lower end. They're like that. You know what I mean? Because they're frustrated. They don't really have any prospects for the future. There's no upward mobility in those societies. America was kind of like that in a certain way. It still is. You're kind of frozen unless you're special in some way where you can move up.
Which, like I said, I understand, and it's, I get it. Like, intellectually, I do. It's hard for me, like, because my mind doesn't work this way because I'm a woman, I'm not a man. It's like, but, I mean, we get frustrated, too. We have the same emotions. We just don't express them in the same way. Like I said, generally, this is not true of everyone, obviously, because everyone's different. But generally, when women are frustrated or angry or something like that, they tend to turn it inward. Whereas men tend to turn it outward. They tend to blame other people, whereas women tend to blame themselves. Which, like I said, is why you don't usually see women spree shooters or anything like that, because it's like, well, if shit's fucked up, it's something we did. Like, so we blame ourselves.
Yeah,
so,
dudes aren't like that.
And dudes are not like that.
Yeah.
Dudes are like, oh, some other motherfucker did that to me, so I'm gonna take everyone out. Women don't think like that.
They're trying to get even with the world.
Right, we don't think like that.
And they're mad at everybody else.
We think everything's our fault.
They're trying to fight their way out of it, type of deal.
Like I said, that's why you don't see women spree shooters all that much.
You're dealing with guys of average and below average type means and intellect, which that shit can go fucking. And if he's fucking slightly mentally ill, like these guys are, fucking, that could spell disaster.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, Tammy says, don't fool yourselves. There are still a lot of abused women out there today. Oh, yeah, I agree. There are. I'm just saying that nowadays it's not as acceptable. I kind of feel like back in the 60s, 70s, 50s, 60s, 70s, even into the 80s, I kind of feel like it wasn't as unusual. Like, either people didn't talk about it, or if they did, it was seen as, like, not a big deal. And whereas, like, nowadays, if you talked about it, it would be a big deal. People would be like, girl, get out of there. You know what I mean?
She's talking about the modern Western world. The developing world, Central South America, Asia, India. No, that shit's fucking still like it was back in the fucking 30s and 40s, 50s, They got some dickheads down there. Because they're kind of like back in time. It's less common here in the Western world.
Yeah, but like I said, it's still
around. But
it's still around. But like I said, it's not as acceptable, and it's more acceptable to talk about. Which is good, I think.
Well, there's the internet.
That too.
And women can report what a dude's doing.
Yeah. And like I said, it's still not great outcomes, but it's better than it was.
Yeah.
Like back in the 50s or 60s, if your husband smacked you around, I really don't think you had much recourse.
I think they thought it was normal.
They did. Well, that's what I mean. It was a lot more normalized, which, like I said, that's why I would never go back in time. Fuck that shit. Yeah, it's just kind of like, well, you must have mouthed off, or you didn't cook dinner right, or some shit like that. So you had it coming.
But everyone wasn't
like that. But I'm
just
just saying that generally, well, shit, you even see it like in movies that came out back then. Like it's almost treated like a joke.
Yeah. Because it was around.
Yeah, but it's almost treated like it's kind of funny. Just like, oh, she burned the dinner, so you can like smack her in the mouth. You know what I mean?
You can spank her.
And it was and it's just kind of like funny. You even saw it like in ads and stuff.
It was spanking on the ends, but I think they were joking around.
Which but like I said, that's not super funny though. That's not super funny. No, not from my perspective.
Well adapted people weren't doing that.
That's not really funny. But yeah,
well adapted people.
But I think it was a lot more common.
Yeah.
I don't know how common it is nowadays, but
I don't think it's as common like it was.
I think it was back then. Like I said, I think it was a lot more normalized.
People were dumber.
Well, that too. Murder Hornet said, "I smack Tammy around all the time."
He smacks who around?
Tammy.
Tammy? Yeah.
Tammy's like, she's like in another state. She's like, what?
Another state.
You got a long ass arm.
Yeah. So what else is going on?
Well, that's about it.
That's
honestly,
about it.
That's about all I got.
It's a good show. It's a good show today. 2 hours.
You don't have anything else to add?
No.
About this motherfucker?
Nope. Fucking, there's nothing I can do.
It just
he escaped fucking justice.
It did that, bro. That really makes me mad, and I kind of feel like all the victim families were like really mad about it too, because they didn't find out that it was him until like 9 years after he was already. They're like, oh well, sorry, and he wasn't even in prison for other shit. He was just living free as a bird.
Just be happy
in Iowa.
Just be happy that they caught the original Night Stalker.
I was so happy when that happened.
Yeah. What was that guy's name again? Fucking
D'Angelo.
They got his ass. And he was doing much worse, actually.
I mean, it's all bad, but
It's all bad, but he was doing much worse. They got D'Angelo.
And I never thought I would see that in my life.
D'Angelo's pussy ass.
I mean, see, this...
Pussy short dick ass.
This genealogical shit, I'm just... It makes me really happy that... Because I thought, it's like, oh, well, they'll just... do it for a couple high-profile cases and then they won't bother. But they really do seem to be, like, using that to, like, go back and solve all of these cold cases, because I look back at a bunch of cases that I wrote about in some of my books, like a lot of unidentified victims and stuff like that, and a lot of them have been identified. And a lot of them have been solved. Like, they are still working on them.
Victor came up with some sexy-ass shit right there, man. He said he turned gay because somebody spanked him for burning the pot roast. They made Victor gay.
Getting spanked for burning the pot roast made me gay.
You quite a housewife, man. You quite a housewife.
I've heard, I don't know if this is true, because I know we have some Brits
he
in
had
the...
his little high heels on with a little fucking fluffy pouch.
He had some pearls and like the little dress with the...
dress on the side, fucking sitting there smacking him and made him gay.
Your little June Cleaver dress?
Yeah, June Cleaver and shit and everything. Little buckles and bows on her fucking high heels and shit.
Tom's getting all, he's going off.
I'm getting hot about that.
You got like, the dress with the crinoline underneath, so it's kind of all coming out like that.
Take me back to the 50s.
There you go.
Betty Crocker cookbooks.
What, you want me to wear some shit like that with some high heels and like vacuum?
We're gonna do a photo shoot like that.
I can vacuum in like high heels and pearls and stuff.
Smacking that fucking ass. You left something on the floor.
Burning that pot roast. Oh my god. But I forgot what I was saying.
I don't know.
What was I saying? Well, of course you weren't.
Yeah.
Of course you don't know. You weren't listening.
It was just a show.
No, I was saying something. It was important. Or I guess it wasn't. It's like everybody says,
talking about crock pots.
Man, I want pot roast now.
Yeah.
And everybody says, now I'm hungry.
I got roasted chicken down there.
Oh, we still got some of that left?
Yeah, I got roasted
We've
chicken.
had so much chicken. Last night, after we went to see Dune 2, we were kind of like, Tom's like, I don't feel like cooking. Let's stop at Publix, and we got like some fried chicken.
Publix
some
is where
potato
you go when
salad.
you don't feel like cooking. You go down there and you buy a roasted chicken.
Honestly,
or a fried
I'm gonna
chicken
say
for like fucking $10. You get all
It's
kinds of
it's like
whole
it's
chicken.
it's what is it? I think it's $12.99.
$12.99.
You get a big thing of fried
a
chicken,
whole chicken,
2 big sides,
2 big sides,
and
like
4
potatoes
rolls.
and rolls. For
You
like
can feed
$12.
you can
$6
feed
a
like 4
person.
people with that. That is
me and
super
Jen
cheap.
me and Jen will eat that shit and have leftovers.
Yeah, I mean we can't
Yeah.
eat that all at once.
Yeah.
We tried to last night, but I was just kind of like,
Yeah.
bro,
If it's fried, the baked I can eat more of that because it doesn't have the
because it doesn't have this
bready
kind on
ones
it.
I do.
Well, it's like we did try to eat some of it last night. I was like, I can't eat all this. I had to save. I had to put it in
Yeah.
foil. Like I ate the rest of it for lunch today. But yeah, so I mean that's a super good deal.
Yeah.
Just saying. I forgot what I was saying, but it was important. But I guess it doesn't matter.
It wasn't that important if you wouldn't have forgotten it. What were you talking about?
I don't know.
I'll back it up.
No, never mind. I'll probably remember it like before it is. Okay, so hopefully you guys enjoyed the show this evening. This was kind of a fun show to do. It was like a super depressing topic.
It wasn't as depressing as some of the other serial killers.
Well, like I said, I do
no
like
children were harmed.
No, but I mean,
Yeah.
women were raped
Women
and
were,
murdered.
yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
really great either.
Yeah, it gets me when the kids get fucked up.
Yeah, I know. I get that too. But you know, they're all.
Yeah.
I'm just mad this dude never went to prison for the shit. He went to prison for other things, but not for this. But yeah. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the show, if that's the right word. And we're going to be back on Friday night for the Sidetrack show, which is my favorite show of the week. Friday night's actually Memento. So we're going to have to go to Memento on Friday night.
Okay, yeah.
So it'll be pre-gaming for Memento Mori,
Okay.
is what we're going to do for that show.
Yeah, I missed that place.
Yeah, we haven't. Well, you know, we've been to
More
Mannequins the
chilled
last
out.
couple.
More professional.
It's a lot, like I said, it's a lot safer.
Yeah.
It's a lot less
That's
gropey
bullshit, yeah.
and a lot less bullshit to deal with. So it's like I feel I have a lot better time there. I'm like a lot
Yeah.
more relaxed. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, so we're gonna go there Friday night, but we will do the show prior to that. So we're gonna pregame for that. So hopefully you guys can join us for that because that's always fun. But thanks for dropping by this evening. It's always good to hang out with you guys, and we'll
Yep.
see you guys again on Friday night. Good night.